Hello, 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 everybody. Welcome back to Darren After Credits number 45. Hope everyone's having a fantastic day. I am joined by some friends of mine. Hello, everybody. How's it going?
How's it going?
Hi, doing good.
I'm pretty good, thank you.
We have a full house today to talk about all of our favorite shows. Hope everyone's having a good one. We have Taz in the corner there. Hello, Taz.
Hello there. How's it going?
We have Darth Bunyan.
Hi.
And returning after many months, Joypad Jake. How's it going, Jake?
Doing good, thanks for having me again.
Of course, yeah. Last time we had you on, we were talking. I think it was the premiere of X-Men '97, which feels like an entire century ago, but also feels like it was just yesterday.
Yeah, time does fly, doesn't it? Especially when you have good shows.
Oh my gosh, I think that's still my favorite show of 2024. I adored that show.
It's definitely up there for me too. If I had to just select right off the bat without thinking hard, I would probably say that one just off key.
Yeah. I mean, Taz, we haven't had you for the whole year, but did you have a favorite show this year?
Favorite show? Oh, did it have to have come out this year? I guess.
I mean, whatever you want to
favorite show that I've watched this year. I can't remember if it actually came out this year, but I actually recently watched Fallout, and I really
that was
good choice.
And it got me to dive deep into the lore. I fell asleep watching Fallout icebergs and stuff for a couple days after I finished the series, and now I got to go back and play all the games.
Yeah, that was one of those games, or that was one of those shows where I'm like, yeah, I'd love to actually dive into that game and explore, because it does feel like such a rich world and such a fun experience. Darth, did you have a favorite show that we talked about this year? Because we talked a lot of shows this year.
A lot. I gotta say, the VisiPop universe with Has Been Hotel and Hell of a Boss have been standouts for me. I mean, as much as Invincible and that, Has Been Hotel stole my heart. Honestly,
Has-Been was so much fun because that was such a out of ballpark, and I'm glad you liked it because I knew nothing about the show, and I was like, hey, do you just want to check out this random TV show? And I hadn't even knew anything about it. And when we started watching, I was like, oh, I'm glad he's not a Christian or something. I'm glad he didn't find it weirdly offensive, because it's not a show for the weary heart. It's
one of my favorite things ever now. Honestly, I'm so happy you found it.
Just because it's animation, that doesn't mean that it's for kids by default.
Oh, absolutely. One of the most gory shows I've seen this year.
I've seen several parents make that mistake, over the months that show has been out, and they say, "Oh, this little kid show is you might want to look into this, and it's only going to take you 5 minutes."
I find it really funny. All the the children of pastors were watching the show, and then the pastors were viewing the show, and they would come on they would go inside their churches and being like, "The Saint on our TVs, they're taking over our kids." All of that stuff is really funny.
What about you?
But my favorite, it was definitely X-Men. Has-Been's up there for me. We didn't talk about it on here, but I really liked the new season of Heartstopper. That was fun too. Fallout was really good. It's been a good year for TV. I think movies kind of took a backseat this year. It was more mellow year for movies, for sure. And then TV was oh yeah, we're actually going to carry the weight. And that's there's no slowing down this year. Obviously we have these 3 shows on right now. Creature Commandos is coming up. What else is about to come out that's big?
Hellbound. Hellbound in 2 days.
Yeah. There's a lot of good tea.
Yeah, and there's some there's some that I have instincts to say, but they haven't concluded yet. So by the end of the year, my answer might change.
Sure.
Because there's some good stuff currently airing right now.
Yeah. I mean, Jake, what's your kind of we've talked about the Penguin, Agatha, and Super and Lois these last several weeks. Since this is your first one here, what's your thoughts on those 3 shows? Just general thoughts.
So as far as Penguin and Agatha, I'm really surprised with both of those so far, because a lot of these comic book villain-led projects, they haven't really committed to making them actual villains, because they've made them some characters that works with the Venom movies and whatnot, but characters like the upcoming Kraven, they're making more heroic. Obviously you had Morbius, which not great, but then even with the Joker movies, how they've gone more for a sympathy angle there. I'm glad that your lead characters in Penguin and Agatha are actually, they're still villains. Like, there's nothing about the word protagonist that says your lead has to be a good person. There's nothing that says that, so they can,
right?
Like, there's still those actions they can do, and you're just seeing it through their lens.
Right.
And then, with Superman and Lois, I think it's been a blast so far this season. I mean, I was worried whenever it started, just because everything we knew going into it, the budget cuts, the lower episodes, the minimal series regulars that they would have. It made me worried that some other characters might not get their time to shine, especially with the original reports of Dylan Walsh's character not coming back at first, and then that later got changed. So I was happy to see that. And they're doing really good so far. Actually, I have a video coming out tomorrow going over what I think of the entire first couple episodes that I've aired so far. So I've been loving that one so far. And the other two I've definitely been liking as well. But as far as those three, I'd say right now Superman's probably my favorite.
Yeah. Listen, I've realized I have such a bias for those CW shows. Like, it was going to be very hard, I think, for Superman. Like, it's just, like, obviously, if they had dropped the ball, like, I would have been like, all right. But, like, for Superman to keep up its level of quality they have the last couple of years, it would have been very hard for many things to beat out Superman for me. I agree. We've talked about these last several weeks about the quality of, would the quality drop? Should we be concerned going into this final season? And I think that makes the season even more impressive. Like, I have some nitpicks and stuff here and there, but like the fact that less the cast, less budget, less writers, CW seemingly pushing them out, just being like, final season, then you're out of here kind of thing. So I do think despite all of that, they've done a very good job.
Yeah, they're still knocking it out of the park and not falling into that same trope that a lot of CW DC shows unfortunately fell into, where they overstayed their welcome and got stale, or never really found their footing and then just kept dragging.
Right.
They're actually still continuing to be as good as they were, and the fact that it's going to be ending on its own terms more or less, the fact that it's actually getting to have an ending means that it gets to stick the landing in the way that hopefully they're planning, but also it's not going to be stale. They're not going to drag it out 6, 7, 8 seasons. It's going to be nice and tight. So here's hoping they stick the landing.
Well, we will obviously talk about this when we get to our Superman and Lois segment, but here is Joni asked, did anyone here like the Kyle Chrissy story? Now, like, for me, these are two characters that are always very hit or miss. I either love these characters or I just don't like these characters. It depends on the episode. Just kind of general thoughts on their storyline in this episode. Obviously, we'll get to that when we get to that segment, but did we like it?
I think there were elements that were good. I think their interactions with the core cast were great. But again, we'll talk about it more when we get to it. But I felt like their story was very much so, while it was the A-plot of the episode, it was very much so kind of a fillery, almost bridging the gap kind of episode.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's fair. And I was concerned about that going into it, because on one hand, I feel like that's one of those episodes is sort of needed. I mean, so obviously, you don't want to have that much filler in, a shortened final season like The Flash did, but these are also characters that, like, they had unresolved things from the ending of the third season, and if they, just take like maybe one episode, or like use one episode to take a character that's not part of the main cast down their storyline, it'll still feel like they're getting developed the whole way through, and not just hanging on by threads while the main cast and Luthor are doing their thing.
Right. Absolutely.
So, yeah, that's my thoughts on it. I mean, I like the characters overall, and I didn't love the storyline, but I was like, okay, I was fine with it.
Sure. Alrighty. We're gonna hop into our first show of the week, which is Agatha All Along. I'm now noticing, Taz, the Agatha logo blends with your background.
Oh yeah, it does.
Yeah.
Oh.
Kind of blends in with the background there. So Agatha All Along.
I didn't even see it at first.
Just like in your little corner there. Agatha All Along, season 1, episode 6. We are now in the back half of the season. We're starting to wrap up towards wrapping up the show. Darth, I feel like this was the episode we've been kind of waiting for, the episode of answers for a particular character. A lot of people have been calling this Billy all along, is kind of what people love about this episode. It was like, it was a very strong Billy episode. It was his show for once. James, let's actually start with you. Were you a fan of this week's episode of Agatha all along? What's been your kind of opinions overall on this season?
So the Billy part, I think he did, kind of need an episode like this. It was kind of similar to the more Agatha-centered episode of WandaVision, like whenever her whole relevance to the season was put out or really shown up full display. I like this episode overall. I don't know if it's been my favorite. I think my opinions on this one will probably they'll be set in stone once the rest of it has played out. Because just looking at it in a vacuum, I definitely think it's good, but I think my enjoyment of it will depend on what comes after it.
Sure. Yeah, this was an interesting one. I wasn't quite sure how to feel about it at first, because I think Billy's been a very interesting character this season. Now, again, we officially know it is Billy. That's something we were kind of theorizing about very early on. I did peek at those Funko Pops very early on in the season. Darth, how were you feeling? Because you didn't know about the whole Billy twist prior into the season. How did this episode do for you?
It's Agatha all along. I'm always going to enjoy it. I gotta say, some of the things that were explained, I'm not a fan of.
Okay.
I have to say, the body jumping, not a fan of that. There was a whole thing of like a plot of a point in Doctor Strange 2 where possession of the dead spawned a whole manner of nonsense. Do you know what I mean? That he then had to use to his advantage. Yet here we are with this happening, going on for years, and no one's any of the wiser or cares. Why are there some laws for some things and not others? I do love the fact that he has been shown to be in the coven the whole time, and that Mrs. Hart was the familiar, and the roles were reversed. He wasn't the familiar, he was in the coven, because when you see him messaging the boyfriend, he's the Black Heart, right? Not Mrs. Hart. It was him all along. So the question is then Rio's involvement and where she is. Do you know what I mean? And her ties into everything. So there's like a whole bunch of questions. But the explainer, I'm not very happy with, because as the stranger says, Hero's Journey says, like, that Billy Kaplan is just gone now. He's just gone, and like nobody knows. Nobody's mourning him. Nobody's celebrating his life or anything. There's just a stranger parading around, and anybody else would call this villain work.
And
now you're actually seeing it all from the perspective of a villain, so it's different.
Yeah, I think I'd argue he is kind of a villain in this episode. And part of me, I think that might be the point. I kind of think there's supposed to be, if you like that or not, parallels to the Wanda situation, where it's like Wanda, depending on who you're talking to on the day, was a villain. Like, she was a villain in Age of Ultron. She was a villain.
Yeah, she was brought into the MCU as a villain. Yeah,
right. So I think it's supposed to parallel where it's like good people do bad things, and again, it's hard because we don't even know if it was on purpose what he did. It wasn't quite clear if he purposely went into, what was the other kid's name, William? It wasn't clear if that was a voluntary, hey, I'm stealing this dead boy's body, or if it was, oops, I'm just here somehow. And if that is the case, how did this all happen? Because they were very wishy-washy. It's just like, he's in this kid's body now. It's whatever. It's
because the hex bubble's going down, like he was a consciousness that was made inside the hex bubble, and he disintegrated. He disappeared. It was not like he was just teleporting or like energy traveling into the ether. Do you know what I mean? Like he was a magical creation. You know, like it's just nuts. It's nuts. It makes no sense. No sense. But does it stop me liking the series? Not a goddamn bit.
I do wonder if we're gonna jump back into that a little bit and see a little bit more, because it's very implied in this episode that we're doing stuff with Tommy. Like it seems like they're implying Tommy is still out there somewhere. You know,
that's even worse. That's worse for me, okay? Because at least with Billy, you have the explanation of magic, okay? Like with Tommy, you have nothing. What? Just he's super sped out of there as a spirit, as a magical spirit with super speed. Great.
Yeah, I think they definitely did a good job at setting up that there's going to be, you know, more coming because of the whole deal with the palm reading, where they say, you know, it's going to be a long journey ahead. It's like, oh, this is just getting started for him.
Right.
So there's going to be a lot more coming.
I am curious to see like where they tell those stories. Like, is it Young Avengers? Is it Vision Quest? Is it Avengers, you know, Secret Wars of Doomsday? Like, where do these direct characters go on to after Agatha all along? Like where do we put them is where I'm going to be very curious.
I have to say, if we don't know about it yet. If we are getting Tommy, I have to say, absolutely wasted opportunity, because for the sake of like the Ralph Boner CIA joke, they could have fully had Evan Peters as a speedster in the MCU.
Yeah,
you know what I mean, and have it make sense. You know, but again, no, they wanted the Ralph Boner joke.
Yeah, I was going to bring that up next, because like it was spoiled for me before I saw the episode that Evan Peters made an appearance in this episode, and you know I was kind of excited for it because I was like, okay, hopefully redemption for this actor. Like, maybe
especially after what happened last time.
And it's very funny. Like I actually do think the show, I don't want to say good job, but they definitely double down on their jokes from the original show. Like they know people made fun of the Agatha. Or I'm sorry, like they made fun of the Mephisto stuff in the first season, so they added Mephisto, right? They know about everyone hating Evan Peters, and they doubled down on the Evan Peters shrug. What? It's like Boner69 was like his username on Reddit or something crazy like that.
I think so. Yeah.
No way they doubled down on the Ralph Boner.
Oh
yeah,
they doubled down with it, and
he did well. He did well as well. That's not what I'm annoyed at. It's the fact that he was even there. You know what I mean? If you're gonna have Evan Peters, like utilize Evan Peters. You know what I mean? Don't just make him a joke, because the guy's phenomenal.
Yeah, that's what I'm just worried that they're gonna keep, you know, putting that character in just to make him the butt end of a joke and not actually have him be a character.
Maybe with Secret Wars, we can hope.
Maybe.
I was about to say that something like that, where they can just more multiverse stuff.
I saw some people speculating that Tommy wanted a Ralph Boner. That would make any sense. That would be a twist for sure. I don't think I'd like that.
I would love that. I would have loved that.
I mean, I feel like that would just be one of those things where they did a twist for the sake of doing a twist.
See, the thing is, the reason that would have made sense, right, and I would have been okay with it, is because of all the mind manipulation that guy suffered through for the whole time that the hex bubble was up. Do you know what I mean? Like, Agatha was messing with his whole thing, and he was somebody else the whole time. So if through all of that and him being in the hex bubble, like another one got shoved in there, I wouldn't have been mad at it, and they could have had a whole triple thing going on, you know?
Yeah. I was really disappointed with the Evan Peters stuff. I think not because they brought back Ralph Boner, right? I was kind of expecting them to do so, but I felt like they had a real opportunity to have that be a very tragic performance from Evan Peters. Like I thought that was a chance. I know his name is Ralph Boner. Yes, that's silly. but like I wanted them to really commit to how tragic that situation was. It was like, yeah, he had the worst experience in Westview. He he was being tortured by both Agatha and Wanda. He was going through all this, and I was like, I'm ready for that really heartfelt performance. And a little bit was there. Like there's certain aspects of that scene was like, oh, this is good.
Yeah,
but they lean.
You almost thought they were gonna go fall through with it.
Yeah, but they lean way too much into the MCU comedy. Sometimes MCU comedy works. This, for me, is an example of where the comedy comes before the story, and I don't love that, and I wanted them to be like, this is your chance to... And it's not like Agatha hasn't done that so far. I think there's been some very tragic things in the show so far. I think they've done a good job at balancing those two things. But yeah, I don't know. I do think we might get Evan Peters, like the real Evan Peters Quicksilver back at some point. Like out of all the X-Men casting, I could see that one being the one. Like, just throw him back in. Like just have him play that character again. But I
even made a comment about the whole thing where I feel like this is one of the series where the humor is kind of taking a little bit of a front seat, and I made a comparison too because somebody said, somebody replied to that comment saying, I said that this series has a little bit of that, a little bit too much of that goofy, MCU, human nature for me. And they said, oh, well, what about these things here? Like, what about the Ant-Man movies, Guardians movies? I said, one, it fits the vibe of the characters that we already know, and it makes sense. But there's also still a bit of a narrative there, and I admitted some of those examples. It's better well balanced than others, but these are also a lot of characters that we're not familiar with yet. So we're still trying to get to know them, and then we're getting hit in the face with jokes at the same time.
Plus, they don't know each other. So it's not like there's any history apart from Rio and obviously Agatha.
Yeah.
And obviously now Billy and Agatha. But like, if you don't know people, you're not going to be there bleeding your heart out. You're just going to be surface level with everybody around in the group, So it's part of the course.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think they've had a pretty good balance so far. Like, again, like you guys were saying, like, these are really, like, to the audience, new characters. Like, these are characters just like Guardians, just like things like that. You can kind of do your own thing with them because they don't have this, 20, 30 year experience with the audience, right? Like, for most people, this is your first time meeting Rio and Agatha and all these kind of things. So I think I think Agatha is a show that can be a little funner, a little goofier. And like WandaVision was a little bit fun. So the audience are going to want something, I think, in that similar vein. But I think they can also kind of throw in a little bit of that spooky era, that little fun, like very I think it hits that like hocus pocus, that like twitches, that's
a little bit, yeah.
That kind of vibe to it, which I really enjoyed.
Swear to God. It's just hit me. I swear to God, if they don't deal with Jen's backstory and Patti LuPone character, I forget her name, the Divination Witch, like the stuff that they've set up, like if they stay in that goddamn river of mud, I'm going to be fuming.
Yeah, that's another thing. Are they done? Like, are all the other witches dead?
Yeah, you don't really know. And like, are they going to answer that?
Yeah, like going into the episode, I was like, oh, they're not. They'll be back next episode or whatever. But the more I thought about it, I was like,
oh, they might not be.
Actually, we might just be dealing with Rio, Agatha, and Billy for the rest of this. Like, what? There's only maybe an hour and a half left of the show. Like, they could do it.
Give or take.
That's kind of crazy. I don't know.
Yeah, and then that whole thing too that you're wondering, how much is going to last. The whole thing with Billy's amnesia, like they're saying that's supposed to subside soon, but it makes you wonder. It's like, okay, we only have a little bit of this left. Is there going to be a very rushed resolution to it, or is it going to feel more natural?
I am a little bit worried about how they end it. I think like when it started out, I was very much like, okay, this is feeling different. This is feeling more like a TV show. It's feeling more what I want from Disney Plus shows. As we moved on, it has felt a little bit more like the classic Disney Plus show we're used to, which I'm like a little worried. That's not bad yet. Yeah. I don't think they've done a bad job with it yet, but I am worried about the finale. Those last two episodes are normally when they trip up, when they kind of fall over on themselves.
Because
a lot of those MCU shows, they fall into that classic thing of where they tell a story in like 8 or 9 episodes that really would have been better told in a 2.5-hour movie.
Yeah,
and they just stretch it out for the sake of padding out the runtime.
See, we were talking about whether they were going to, sorry, Taz, show the real world implications of what of them surviving the road. Do you know what I mean? But we haven't even seen what the end looks like on the horizon yet. So I think literally the end might just be them escaping the road, surviving the Salem 7, and then cut to black. I don't think we're going to have much out of the road, if anything. Yeah. Which is a shame.
I hope we do a season 2. Like, I know it was, originally supposed to be like a limited series, a one-off thing. Yep. But I me and Darth talked about this a couple weeks ago. Like, it's the one of the more highest rated TV shows. Like, it's brought in some of the biggest views for Disney Plus. It's the cheapest show the Marvel Disney Plus show they've done. It has a strong audience already. Why not do more? You know what I mean?
They haven't had views like this since like WandaVision and Loki. So
yeah.
Is it a little bit of a coincidence too that the ones that are getting the highest views are more magic reality based? So, is that a coincidence? Yeah. We don't know.
Perhaps. Alexander has a very good question here. Who is Taz? I don't know. I've never heard this.
I don't know. I've never heard of that guy.
I don't know. Maybe he was in this. He might have been in this cartoon, Toons of the Looney variety, if I remember right.
Yeah.
Tasmanian, maybe.
Yeah, potentially.
Maybe.
Sort of a devil
I definitely don't have a blanket all the way over there with that character on it.
And you get like a little Taz Funko. Just put him inside my corner.
That's actually the one. That's actually the one Funko I don't have. Funny enough.
Gotta get a Taz.
Funny enough. Yeah,
wait, do those exist?
Yeah, they have to, right?
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure there's one where he's like in his like tornado form that I've got.
Oh, we gotta get one of those.
Yeah.
Darren, I'm blaming you for my ongoing Funko collection.
Again, as I always say, over there off camera, that is the majority of the Funko collection, and it has become out of hand.
Yeah, the majority of mine is in my office in the next room. So.
Yeah, see, that's what I thought.
Whoa, that's cool.
Wait, yo, why is he $24 though, or $23? Sorry.
Oh, I can barely see it.
That's from Walmart. Walmart always does have crazy prices.
100th anniversary Taz as Scooby-Doo vinyl figure.
Wait, there's a Taz cool. Flash Funko.
What?
Okay, hold on. Hold on. We're going out on a tangent really quickly, but I might need to buy this. Hold on.
Sidebar. Has Flash.
Whoa.
Okay.
We might need to make an investment.
Oh no. Wait, is that the frickin'? Okay, so down there on the row of other Funkos, is that that one tiger or that's on the cereal brand?
Yeah, that's.
That is Tony the Tiger.
Yeah. Oh my god.
$895. Good lord.
Wait.
Might as well get 2 of them then.
How much?
$895 on eBay.
For Tony the Tiger or the Flash?
Tony the Tiger. Oh wait, am I not sharing my screen? Oh, I'm not sharing my screen. I'm sorry.
Oh no, I can't see it.
Hold on. Let me share my. We will get back on track in a minute, folks.
Dude, what Funko cost that damn much?
$895.
Oh,
jeez.
Wow. That's horrendous.
That is crazy.
That's grim.
Darren, you're going to be in a vicious battle with your account over the next couple of days. We'll see who comes out on top.
I don't know if I even have that amount of my bank account at the moment. I don't know.
Somebody that would pay that has too much money.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe if I took my entire Funko collection and sold it, I could maybe afford that one.
Yeah, I would probably have to take like my entire box of SNES cartridges over there and sell that off, and I don't want to do that.
Yep.
That's hilarious.
Agatha, is there anything we haven't touched on yet that you guys want to talk about?
Something that Darren, you mentioned that I thought was kind of interesting. You said that Agatha started off as kind of like it felt very different, it felt very unique, and you're just kind of worried that the last couple episodes are going to kind of fall off and into like the traditional MCU formula. And funny enough, that's kind of how WandaVision started. Like
100%.
I did a whole video essay about how it kind of like broke the traditional formula. I went back recently over this last weekend and rewatched it, and I absolutely love the first, handful of episodes until you get to those last couple episodes. Like the finale just felt so rushed and just fell very much so into that traditional, like, okay, big MCU CGI fight coming up kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So hopefully, I obviously I still haven't seen the show yet, seen Agatha yet. So I hope that it, kind of lives up to the hype in that regard, as far as feeling different, feeling unique. And also it seems like it's, it's a seasonal show too. It's coming out around Halloween. It's going to finish around that as well. So, hopefully it kind of puts you in that mood as well.
Yeah, I think it's gonna be one of those things like WandaVision, where it was so different than the normal MCU stuff he'd gotten at the time, and that's what brought in a lot of your other audiences. Because I pitched it to some other people in my family. I said, there's gonna be part of it that's like magic, but also part of it is kind of like I Love Lucy and some of those other sitcoms that they all really liked, and that's what got a lot of them onto it. And then they saw the cliffhangers at the end, and then they wanted to keep seeing more. So that's how you draw in an audience.
Right. Yeah. Very much so bring in people that have no interest in traditional Marvel stuff and make them a fan just because of
they just like the
underlying
themes.
Yeah.
Right. And that's what the MCU I think has needed more of. Like, not to
more genre
talk about the Arrowverse like I always do, but like what made the Arrowverse so successful is they had these individual fandoms. Like, you didn't have to love the whole Arrowverse, but you love the Flash. Some people love Arrow, some people love Supergirl, some people love Legends. That's what made it live so long. Yeah. Where the MCU up until this point, most people are just a fan of the entire thing, just the entire franchise. Yeah. That's why it's been dying off a little bit, but now you're creating these individual, you have these WandaVision, stuff. Hopefully we'll be getting like that with Daredevil, where you can have like people who just love Daredevil and stuff like that.
Or like the street level stuff. Yeah.
Right.
I will say it got more difficult. It got more difficult with some of those CW shows just to kind of round up that point. If you had somebody that only watched, like a certain one or two of them, especially whenever crossovers came around, it got very difficult in later years to explain what was happening. Because my brother only watched Arrow. That was the only one he watched. He tried like the first 2 seasons of the Flash and then gave up on it. So, especially going into their final Arrow season, having to explain everything that happened, it was a task, let me tell you.
Sure, absolutely. Garth, do you have something to say?
Yeah, just that I do think that they're going to finish the season together. I know that we spoke earlier about where they're stuck in the mud at the minute, quite literally. But I think the whole point of the show is to give Agatha the coven that she's craved the whole time, that she keeps getting robbed of because of her power that I feel like was a point of acquisition at some point, but has turned into a curse, which is very interesting.
Sure.
But I think that's where we're going to end up. But another point is the bar mitzvah itself. Oh, wow. The fact that it was
funky hat.
I just saw it.
Just derailed the whole conversation.
The fact that it was a magical bar mitzvah. And then also we had Patti LuPone's divination, which putting the sigil on Billy in the first place, on Billy Kaplan, which is interesting that the sigil then worked on Billy Maximoff. Do you know what I mean? As opposed to, and the fact that they said that their lives are entwined. So does that mean that he's completely gone or not? I mean, just that he's his body, like he says he's gone, but that's just because he's not wrestling with his consciousness like Moon Knight. It could be that he's back there protected somewhere. Who knows?
And that's what I kind of was wondering is like, was William fully dead? Like if that didn't happen in that moment, could they have rushed William to the hospital? Could they have saved him, or did Billy kind of take any chance of William possibly surviving. Like, maybe that could have saved him. Like, maybe that was an empty vessel and he just kind of took over. Like, if that's the case, I don't think it's as bad of a situation because it was a dead body anyway. He kind of took over this empty vessel, whatever. But if he was in there somewhere, that's pretty messed up. If, like, William could have lived on and had a normal life and done all the things he was going to go on to do.
Do you think it's all chance, or do you think that all of the circumstances were, like, the magic making it that way to lead to a result?
Sure. I have no idea. I think I kind of just assumed in that scene that it was by chance. Like, they happened to be going down that line. Maybe it was the first soul they were able to find, and he just kind of went in at the very end there. I don't know. Really, I don't. I'm again, that's why I'm curious when we get to the
a lot of
stuff.
dominoes had to line up for them all to fall so neatly, is my point. Because even if just one domino was out of place,
right.
For example, if they hired a different witch, if a different security guard or police officer, or like the fire witch turned up, like if she wasn't so terrible at a job, like, and everything else, like everything was in place, everybody was in place, and I feel like there was is providence the right word? Providence. What that it was meant to kick something was meant to kick this off.
Predestined,
yeah.
I mean, when your mother is the Scarlet Witch, I would not be shocked if there is some preordained destiny, right? Like Billy in the comics, I could be mistaken, very powerful character. Like, there is a lot kind of focusing on him. I feel like a lot of people say he's one of the stronger Marvel characters out there. So
up there, yeah, definitely.
I would say there could be like, we talk about the sacred timeline a lot, where like things have to happen in a certain way for big events to unfold. That could just be one of them. Like, maybe Billy's what's the word they use for him? What's the word they use in Loki?
An anchor beam.
Anchor being.
Not an anchor beam. It's like one of those
Nexus being.
Nexus being.
Nexus.
I like Nexus being where certain characters are the same in every kind of whatever.
Yeah.
Where it's like
replacing his mum if she's gone, like, because
Right.
she was the Nexus being, and then if she's gone, there might need to be a replacement, and you're right, that could be him.
Sure.
Yeah. Are we moving on?
Comic Nation, I wanted to bring up this comment. I thought this was interesting. Do you guys believe in the theory that the boys screaming at the end of WandaVision was their souls screaming as they entered their new bodies because they were scared about what was happening to them?
If that's the case, that is metal.
I don't know if
That is so metal.
I don't know if I've seen that theory yet.
It's a good idea.
Yeah.
Especially if they thought about this that far in advance. I think maybe at the time, potentially it was just, her hearing them maybe in an alt universe, because that kind of leads into Doctor Strange.
Mm-hmm.
That was kind of at least how I interpreted it.
Yeah. I mean, it's plausible, I would say. It's a theory that's got some weight to it, and I guess we'll kind of see at the end of the day. Little detail I wanted to point out too. I can't remember if someone brought this up already, but whenever Billy and what's the dog's name?
Sparky?
No, the
rest in peace, Sparky.
yeah, that one. The one that catches Billy by surprise. Is there a name for it? Because he gets barked at and almost like he's a different person in a way.
In his house. Yeah.
Does that dog have a name? I'm forgetting.
Blanking on it. Yeah.
I didn't catch it.
I can't remember, but just that little bit of him, kind of barking him things like, "Hey, you're not you. There's something different about you." It's like, okay, that had to mean something.
Yeah. You're right. Is it a case of, is it because I know you're not who you say you are, or I know you're inherently evil?
Could be either one, or both.
I will say I really didn't like the ending monologue where it's like the first one there is a bad person or whatever it was, and I was like,
oh yeah,
I was like, oh yeah, like a good person. I was like, yeah, that's a little, I don't know, I found that a bit cringe, I'll be honest. I was like, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean,
there's so much
you're gonna get some of that with the MCU shows once in a while.
Yeah.
I'm so nervous, dude. Honestly, like there's so much to be done. I need to know. I need a whole backstory for Rio alone. I need a whole backstory for Jen and the Doctor. I need one for Patti LuPone's witch and divination and the whole life she's lived and like that whole Italy thing. Like
even Agatha, I feel like there's a lot of holes we need to fill. Yeah.
Yeah, and then if just like I swear to God, just because they get to the end. If they one punch the Salem 7, I'm also not going to be happy. They need like a whole battle.
Yeah, I mean, we have an hour and a half left. I think if, utilized properly, that's a good amount of time. Like, you can definitely do that in that amount of time. But let's see if they stay focused and we can get everything done we need to get done. With that being said, we're going to be moving on to our next show, and that's The Penguin. Was this episode 5? Episode 5.
5. Yeah.
Homecoming.
I say this every week. It feels like we've been watching this for like 2 years. I don't know. Like this
Yeah.
has been, as much as I love this show, it feels so exhausting each week. And it's like,
well, it's great. Man, they're hour-long episodes.
They are.
Yep.
Yeah. Especially like in comparison to Agatha, where they're like 29 minutes or so, where it's like, yeah, these are long. It feels nice to have hour-long episodes. They're like they're like these mini movies that we keep watching, which is really fun.
That brings you back to those old Erebus days again, where the episodes were long.
Yeah. Jake, what's been your kind of experience with The Penguin?
So, like I was saying earlier, I like how this is, again, one of those villain-led projects where they actually have him be, like he is a full-on villain. They're not making him into a hero. There's still these, immoral actions that he does, but now you're seeing it through his lens. Nice. You're seeing it through his lens and not, through the lens of Batman, because, you see it through the lens of Batman and it's, very clear as to why, that sort of person should be stopped. But when you get a chance to see it through the lens of the villain, it actually, it not necessarily convinces you to their side, but it fleshes out more of why they're doing what they're doing. And that's what that's what makes those villains compelling, not just what they do, but why they do it.
Right.
And I think they've been really doing good with that too. And it's made me feel, just one of the things that I love about this show that I feel like Gotham also did really well with the Penguin is that, like, he will set, these opposing forces up against each other like chess pieces and then just watch them clash into each other. Like that's who he is. He will pit, two of his enemies against each other and then just watch the fallout of it. Like that's who Penguin is. And I'm liking how they've done that with both this series and, the Gotham one too, but that was a while ago. But I like this series a lot so far, especially with this kind of a new take on Sophia Falcone, because yes, she did have one live action iteration, but it wasn't great. That was probably one of the worst parts of that Gotham series was the Sophia Falcone character, at least for me. So I'm definitely liking how they're doing her character so far. We haven't seen her very much, but I'm just kind of liking that we get a more everyday perspective on this Gotham, because as grounded as the Batman movie was, you didn't really get to see a lot of how his actions affected the people in the city. More just it was kind of the other way around. You got to see what effect the city and stuff had on him, but now you're getting to see just the normal everyday things, and it's giving the city itself kind of more of a character in a sense. And I feel like that was, so I know people probably disagree with this, but I feel like that was partially missing from the Batman movie. It was there in some parts, but I feel like this series is doing a really good job at actually showing all the complex layers that Gotham has. So I have to give it props.
I think Gotham City itself is certainly a character in and of itself in this series.
Yeah, and that's one of the things I love about it.
Really the best version that you can give the audience is when the city feels alive, that what the characters are doing actually matter and it's changing the city for good or for bad.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's interesting because I'd argue probably Gotham City is the most famous city in fiction. Like I'm trying to think about any other famous cities. There's some others
than Metropolis.
Metropolis.
Metropolis. I was about to go to the Marvel side, but like 90% of those series of those cities are real.
Right.
Central City, maybe.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, but just on like a grand scale. Like I feel like if you
Yeah.
go up to a stranger, like, "Hey, do you know what Gotham City is?" They're probably gonna be like, "Yeah, it's the city Batman lives in." Like I feel like it is so iconic, and I think it definitely takes from what I loved about. Not to go back again, I'm so sorry, but like what the Arrowverse did, where like those, I have a problem, I know, but like
No, it's great.
I love those. I love Starling
roads
City,
lead
I love
back to
Central
the
City,
City, yeah.
I love National City. They all had such a distinct flavor and personality, and they did feel like an extension of the characters that we were following, and that was great. And you're 100% right, where it's like this show I think has really taken advantage of, not to bash on the MCU stuff, but like taking advantage of the TV formula, I think, and what a TV can add to your universe, where instead of being like, hey, it's our universe but in TV form, it's like, what can TV do to grow out our larger world? What can we use that when? And I think the like everyday, you're right, like the waking up every day, okay, it's a new mission, it's a new mission, it's a new mission, spending time with these characters. We're going to end up spending 8 hours with the Penguin. That's insane. We will have spent way more time with the Penguin than we would with the Batman so far, and that's a crazy fact. It's really, really crazy. Probably actually, even when he gets his trilogy, we will have still spent more time with the Penguin than we would have with Batman, which is crazy.
Probably, yeah, because he's probably not going to be the biggest factor in like movies going forward.
I beat you, Lance. I got all of them. They're mine. I was kidding.
He's collecting us like we're Infinity Stones.
Yeah,
really. Fearless Alley said, "Hello, Taz."
Hello.
And apparently the rumor. I haven't seen that rumor. I've heard it's a limited series. Have you heard this?
I'm pretty sure they've already said this isn't happening. Or at least because it doesn't look like it. Because Colin Farrell said that he would put it back on for the movie, but doesn't want to put on know all those prosthetics for that long amount of time again. Because it takes a lot less time to shoot a movie than it does to shoot an ongoing series like this. So I mean, he loves playing the character, but it was pretty taxing on him.
Right. No,
I think as well, one season of this show is going to serve its purpose. It's meant to, again, bridge the gap between the Batman and the Batman Part 2.
Because it's what, like a 2-year gap after that?
Yeah, I think it's supposed to come out, 2025, 2026? I can't remember if it got delayed.
They're filming in 25. I think it's a 2026, 2027.
Okay.
I don't think they're going to have both of the Batman movies come out close to the same time. I think there's going to be a little bit of time in between them.
Yeah, but I think it's going to serve its purpose of building out the world a little bit more so that they don't have to spend as much time, establishing where all of the different factions are, the state of Gotham post Batman 1. We can kind of just jump right into things, I feel like, going into the Batman 2, if they again kind of continue the sort of, all right, one leads into the next kind of thing. And I'm hoping that we get some sort of tease as far as where we're going, maybe, again, status of different factions, or, who we might expect for a villain or something as a tease at the end of the Penguin.
Yeah, and like I've really fallen in love with the Penguin character. Like I think he's been so good. I want them to lead me wanting more from him. Like I want this to be it, and then lead me like that's how good our characters are. Is character you didn't think you cared about before the show started, now you want more of them. And then I'd like you to focus for after the Batman Part 2, I want another show set in Gotham. I want another, if that's the Arkham series they've been trying to get off the ground for forever, if that's that police show they've been trying to get off the ground for forever, something else in particular. Like I know it was rumored a long time ago that like maybe a Professor Pig show or movie or something like that. Something else to kind of fill in the gap after the Batman Part 2.
Did that rumor not get axed?
The Arkham rumor. The Arkham rumor, I'm so sick of, because they keep going back and forth. It's canceled, but actually maybe not. But part of the DCU, but no, it's always part of this universe. But now that's canceled, and now maybe not. And it's like, make up your mind. I don't know.
Back when it started, the Arkham Project, as it was called back then, was supposed to take place with Affleck's Batman. And look at how far that rumor's come.
Right.
I mean, I feel like at this point we can't really believe anything until James Gunn confirms or denies something at this point, because I mean he'll come out and just acts all like crazy rumors and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But until something
there's certain
is
things
confirmed.
and it's funny because there's certain things that he hasn't axed yet leaves people a little bit concerned that just because he said something, or just because he hasn't said something is or isn't happening doesn't necessarily mean it yet.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Comic Nation has a comment about Sophia. Sophia Carmine has to be my new favorite Batman adjacent character. I love the acting, her storyline, and presence. She's so complex. I love it. I want her to live into the Batman Part 2. Do you think she's going to be in the Batman Part 2? Do you think she's going to live past the Penguin?
Absolutely. I think everybody will, apart from Salvatore.
Sure.
Right. Yeah. I get the case.
I mean, as you said, we're world building here, so you're not going to kill off big powerhouses that you're building up from the ground up.
Because not everybody who goes into the Batman Part 2 is going to watch this series.
I will say that he won't. I don't think he'll kill her off. I think he might cripple her operation, but that's as far as I think that they'll go with that.
Right. I feel like the big question is kind of what's the status at the end of it? Who is the Kingpin of Gotham? Is it Sophia or is it the Penguin? How do they leave things off, or do they somehow eventually come to an alliance, and then that alliance is again a big factor in the Batman Part 2?
Yeah.
Also, can we imagine a scenario where in the Batman 2, the Penguin and the Batman are going to be neighbors? And just seeing each other down the tunnels, passing each other in their cars.
Yeah,
that would be such a trip.
Or maybe he's under the streets of Gotham. Maybe he bumps into a Lazarus pit or something.
Ooh.
Yeah, I think the only character I'm nervous about is just Victor. I think that's the one that I could see either going down an even darker path or not making it alive, or I could maybe see a world. I don't know if we can do that in three episodes left, 5, 6, 7, 8. 3 more episodes.
Yep, 8.
So
okay,
I could see a world. I don't know if we have enough time for this, but eventually I could see a world where does he try to overthrow the Penguin? Does it get to his head a little bit and he enjoys that power? Again, 3 episodes I think is too much for that, but down the line I could see that character trying to do something like that, getting so confident that he can kind of, I don't know. I don't know where we're going.
I was sorry.
Go ahead.
Sorry, go on.
No, go ahead.
No,
go ahead. No, speaking of his confidence, I loved Victor's confidence this week. He seemed like he very much so came into his own, and the fact that again at the end of not last week but the week before, he came back, saved Penguin, that kind of thing. We got the follow on from that. He seemed again very much so kind of assuming the position and being okay, I'm in it now and I'm gonna take full advantage of that position.
I will say to that point, I do feel that given how this week has finished and how we're at the all is lost moment, yes, Victor is by his side at the moment, but given that everybody else has been through his side for previous moments like this, Victor himself could just be a matter of time for the Penguin. So I would say that he can trust nobody anymore, not even his mother. To just not just screw him over,
Yeah. That's a good perspective.
That makes sense too. Within just the whole nature of that series and that world, it's you could be stabbed in the back by anybody at any moment.
Yeah.
I did want to ask, do you think the 3 episodes might change your answer, but do you think we will get any kind of Peacemaker brother explaining flashbacks? Where his brothers went and what happened to him and how the city took them and how he was too weak. Do you think we'll get that mixed with a triumphant moment of how he overcomes and shows his strength, and it isn't just through what Taz was saying, a few weeks ago, like just through belittlement is usually when he stands up for himself, when he gets called a penguin or like his disability gets pointed out, and then that's when he's like, all right, that's enough, I'll show you. So like instead of just showing what he feels is true strength, because obviously like we have to finish the show with him in the position of the kind of street guy that he idolized as a child.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just like, where do you think we'll get the moment with his brothers?
Possibly. I think they did a really good job of explaining it this week and kind of showing again how obviously it's weighing on his mother a lot. And it's weighing on Oswald a lot as well. And I feel like maybe at the end of things, I think you are on the right track as far as, you know, maybe the whole reason why he's trying to become the kingpin of Gotham, so to speak, is to kind of maybe honor their memory or, you know, do something that obviously now, since they are no longer around, since the city, quote unquote, took them, you know, take the city back for them.
Sure.
Kind of like riding the sandworms in Dune.
Yeah, I am very curious, kind of like what the final three kind of has in store. Because again, like I felt like all around this week, all the shows were kind of big setup weeks. They were all kind of like putting things in motion for the finale to kind of get started. Like this is very much putting Sophia in, you know, her alliances, setting up Penguin and Victor for where they are going to be standing in this, what I've been dubbing this like Gotham City war that I think is about to be brewing.
Yeah, it's like turf war.
Absolutely. And
the
like,
war
yeah,
of
like
jokes and riddles.
Like I wasn't sure where we were gonna take Sophia, but I'll be honest, it surprised me a little bit where we've kind of put her up in her alliances. I was like, oh, okay, we're putting them together. Now that, you know, she's killed her entire family, you know, she's done all these things.
She really turned the corner.
Yeah.
Especially again, you know, to reference her previous counterpart, they're going to a lot further lengths with her than you saw when she was adapted into Gotham. So I think this one has really been a good adaptation of her.
I love how she wears her scars so proudly and openly. Almost accusingly, you know, like this is what everybody did. You are part of it, you know, and rightly so, because everybody was a part of putting her where she was, you know.
Yeah.
I do have to say, I think it's an interesting blossom, because obviously this is what she had in her head and what she wanted the whole time, and what her father would have had if he hadn't put her in Arkham. This is what she would have been like.
Yeah.
Maybe less homicide-y, you know.
Potentially,
you know? But this is the gem we would have gotten. And it's interesting to see the path, because not a few episodes ago she was timidly trying to set up a deal with the Chinatown gangs, you know, and like talking in hushed whispers and with Oz and stuff, and then here she is now, like 3 episodes later, the head of a crime family now. It's crazy.
Yeah. You know, and that's one thing I love too, that it shows the kind of the power of that line, like of that family, and like the fact that she just slides right in and takes it over. It's like, wow, okay, like they are not messing around.
Yeah. I think this is also very fascinating. Cosmic Nation Gaming. I did the wrong one. Sorry. I'll be honest. My only issue with the Penguin, I enjoy Sophia far more than Oz. Like I want her to succeed so badly.
That's a good point.
I definitely feel this like House of the Dragon-esque thing where it's like, choose your side. Whose side are you on?
I'm definitely Team Oz. I'm definitely Team Oz.
There are no morally straight characters.
Oh yeah, it's just like, who do you want to win more? Like either one, they both kind of suck, right?
No one's innocent. Obviously, they've both been like, you know, molded and changed by the city, by the people in the city, by, you know, being looked down upon, by being kind of tossed and cast to the side. They both have very very similar origins in many ways, and also very similar goals in many ways as well. And I think they've done a really good job with that parallel story, and that's something that I was not expecting from the show at all when we first came into it. And I was like, okay, yeah, obviously it's Penguin focused, we're gonna see Sophia Falcone, and I didn't expect her to be such a massive part of the show and expect to enjoy her as much as I do, and root for her as much as I do as well, and just want to see kind of where that takes things. And how, again, I think that her her flashback episode was great, and I think it led perfectly into what we got to see this week as well, with her fully rightfully taking kind of what was hers, and trying to almost lead the Gotham Mafia, but in a nicer way, or as nice as you kind of can after being, mentally broken at Arkham, or mentally broken at Arkham and killing your entire family. Yep. Be like, no, but I'm gonna be better, So
yeah,
I'm enjoying it a lot. Another hat change.
I said,
I love that one.
That might be one of my favorites you have. Now all you need is the scepter to go with it.
I think awesome. This is my favorite. I saw, not to get off the Penguin topic, although we are transitioning here. I saw a Queen of Hearts hat at the store the other day. It's just like this one, but it's from Queen of Hearts from Alice in Wonderland. I kind of regret not buying it.
Oh man,
just collecting my Disney hats.
You should get the Penguin top hat.
Is there a?
I do have a top hat somewhere.
I'm curious. Do they sell the Riddler type of bowler hats at all?
Oh, I bet they do.
Yeah, that would be one to look at.
That'd be fun. I need to look. Yeah,
can see it. This is, where is it? Right there. That's a Riddler cape. It's kind of behind my head, but I'll have to grab it at some point. There's a Riddler cape and a Superman cape back there. So.
And what's the other mask over there?
Other mask. There's this is right here.
No, little Jesus. This is bad. so right below where my finger is on your monitor.
Oh, those are some hats. Those are hats.
Oh, those are hats. Okay.
Yeah, those are hats.
I thought that one looked like a mask.
No. Those are hats.
Nice.
I think it's a Joker hat though. The top one on that side's a Joker hat.
Yeah. That
this one's a Power Ranger.
You're struggling there, Darren.
Yeah. That other one just kind of blended in with the light, so it looked like just a mask.
Yeah.
Another similar aspect I love about Sophia and Penguin is how they try to run their operations like the socialists, just sharing the wealth and applauding the worker instead of like the capitalist grind of just chewing them up in the machine that everybody else was doing before and reaping the rewards,
Right.
And that's something that Penguin obviously strives to do with the girls, tried to do with his guys, his friends, but a lot of them didn't see him as an equal. So he has a small group of guys that he's working with now, which is awesome. And I think that if he keeps that up, it'll make sense and it'll permeate out. Same with Sophia. So instead of just being it's because they have money that buys loyalty, it's who we see, it's who they are and how they operate, and they are a new generation in Gotham, and it's great.
And speaking of that kind of new power, I guess, did anybody else get this same kind of vibe from that scene when Sophia threw down the bag of money, killed what's his name, Johnny V, and everything? It felt kind of like the scene in Under the Red Hood where he throws the head on the table and is like, I'm in charge now. If I don't know, I kind of got some similar vibes to it, and again, it very well done scene, but I just kind of draw that comparison as well.
No,
I see what you mean. You say that,
especially just how you see the fear that's exuding from all of the people around. It's like, we thought we were the big cheese in Gotham. We were wrong.
Yeah. Absolutely. Is there any kind of final things we haven't touched on yet?
Talk about? Who do we think Squid is working for? So obviously he's like a low-level thing where he's doing his own thing, but it seems like he's definitely going to be selling the information that he stumbled upon with Vic. Who do you think is going straight Sophia?
Possibly either straight to Sophia or straight to what's his name?
Salvatore.
Sal. Yeah.
Oh my god! Can we also just say what a brilliant choice?
Oh yeah.
Like to have a crime boss and you choose Clancy Brown.
Yeah.
Come on.
Right.
Yeah. He's great. He's great.
Yeah.
Come on.
He's become so like associated to me with like DC at this point, with like Lex Luthor and his role in the Flash and here and something else as well. I think like he just keeps coming back to this world, and I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's been really good. I was honestly surprised. I mean, at first I was like, Clancy Brown. I'm like, hey, that's interesting. Looking forward to seeing that. But now when you see it, it's like, oh wow, this is actually really good.
Yeah. Just like dub it over the like Mr. Crab videos where it's just like you slimy squirt, just have it be those crazy lines from the Penguin over Mr. Crab.
And the other thing you were talking about, I think he also, I admit this is not a great product, but I think he voiced Parallax in the Green Lantern movie. I think that was him too. So there's another DC role. You were trying to ask what the other one was. I think that might have been the one you were trying to find.
I definitely would not have known that, but I knew he had to have been someone else down the line.
Something else to talk about before we move on is the absolute sliminess of Dr. Rush.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
If anyone does die, I hope it's that guy. Okay? Because just inappropriate beyond all measure.
Yeah.
And the creepiness of the way he looks at her is just... Yeah.
Dude worked at Arkham, but probably should have just been in Arkham.
Just been in there, yeah.
Yeah. Very good. Very good. Yeah, absolutely.
And on that note, we're going to be stepping into our final show of the night. My favorite show on right now, if I'm going to be honest. Superman and Lois, Season 4, Episode 4. I always like when the season and episodes can kind of like connect with. It's the same number of episodes, the same number of season. I don't know. It's like a thing in my brain that's like, ooh, yeah.
And you know what? Just because for recent examples, those episodes have sometimes just kind of coincidentally been some of the better ones. Like, the third episode of Superman and Lois' third season was one of the best in the series. And then you had the Flash episode 9, which was the Oliver Queen one. One of the better ones there. So are we noticing a trend here, maybe?
Perhaps. Jake, obviously you talked about it at the front, but what's been your kind of experience with this season of Superman and Lois?
Well, like I said, those worries that I had at first, so they're still kind of like they're lingering in the background. Like I'm concerned about how much development, certain characters are going to get that are not, part of the main cast. And I wasn't too sure. I mean, just based off what we saw, at the end of season 3, we only saw, we only saw Lex for a little bit at the end of that season, but I think he is quickly becoming one of the better Lexes that we've gotten because, I mean, just in, what was it, like episode 2, I think it was, where Jordan goes in there and confronts him full on. He makes Jordan quiver down, and Lex does not have any powers, and he makes Jordan quiver back in fear. I mean, you have to be pretty scary to be able to do that and just have you have to have a real pair on you to try something like that. And they're going for this more, vengeful and bitter Luthor, which I think is kind of been missing from movies because from a lot of Lex's portrayals in movies have always been, going all the way back to Reeve Superman. You had, the greedy businessman that's just after, more money. It was generic, and I will say I love that movie. Lex is probably the worst part of it. But they've had good versions of Lex Luthor in the shows. I mean, obviously Rosamund from Smallville is a classic. And in John Cryer's early Supergirl appearances, I think he was great. It was kind of he was kind of tainted after that, but they're doing, I think, great with Michael Cudlitz so far. Honestly, all the actors I feel like are really, really giving it their all. And there are some, scenes in there that I don't love, like the some of the Sarah scenes that have been in these episodes, I'm like, okay, that's fine. It's been interesting to see kind of her friendship with John a little bit, because she's, often more with Jordan, but it's interesting seeing her and John develop that friendship. And then, the bits with her and Lana, obviously they really do hit home. And yeah, I'm really liking the storytelling that they're doing so far, but I'm just a little worried because there's so much they have to do in so little amount of time. And I don't want it to feel like, like I don't want it to be another one of those Flash season 9 situations where it's 85% of things that don't matter. And then 15, like you really want more of that 15%, and then you just don't get it. But I definitely think they're on the right track so far. This episode that just came I think it was the weakest of the 4 so far, but like I said, it was kind of an episode that you need because of those characters that had unresolved things from the 3rd season. And, if you just left all the characters by the wayside the whole time, they wouldn't get developed and they wouldn't feel like they had a point. So, some people might argue that some of the characters still don't have a point, but I think an episode like this was needed. And this is how you do, things like that, right? Because there were still plot beats that were being, developed in the episode too. So it's not like it was just completely putting a halt on the storytelling. So I think they've been doing good so far.
Yeah. There's been a concern for me this season. There's been these 2 battling concerns, one of which was part of it's feeling very rushed. And then the other concern is, but also I want to make sure we get to everything I want to get to this season. Like I want to make sure they have enough time. So I think there's been this, and I think they also have that same concern of them being like, all right, we got to get everything done, but we also want to pace it out, but we also want it to feel satisfying from the last season, blah, blah, blah. And I kind of, I titled this week's episode is like, does Superman Lois feel rushed? Because there were elements of this episode for me that did feel very rushed. And I do want to talk about that at the front. Spoilers for Superman Lois. Darth, I'm not sure if you finished the episode yet or not.
19 minutes in. 16 minutes
Darth, if you want to hop out if you don't get spoiled, you're by all means you can.
I think I'm okay. I've seen the emotional stuff. It just needs it's the end stuff where it's going to be interesting and get some answers and questions. So it's fine. Yeah, it's fine.
Well, spoilers are incoming. So when Batman showed up and he, I was kidding. Superman came back this week. Like that's the big, huge thing of the episode. Is Superman returned?
Within the first minute.
I know.
It was really quick.
I was like, is this a dream sequence? Is this a vision? Like what's happening? Or is this like a flash forward to the end of the episode or something?
Yeah. I get why that would feel rushed, but also they couldn't have him be dead too long.
Right.
Because or else it wouldn't really feel like a Superman show.
You might be wondering how I got here. Just because.
Yeah.
But also, why did he come dressed for the funeral? He woke up, changed out of his Superman suit, got his fancy clothes, and then came and made his dramatic return.
Wow.
He was just watching them for a couple minutes, be like, okay, she's going to be standing right there. I'm going to slowly come down.
That's what I notice he does in a lot of these dramatic moments, like whether it's an identity reveal or a thing like this, it's always just very slow and kind of dramatic, but also there's a sense of grace to it, I guess is the word. But I do. I can see the argument of it feeling a little bit rushed, but again,
sometimes
it's
hard.
Go ahead. No,
sometimes in my head, and this can sometimes just be a me problem, when I am so convinced of a certain thing, and when a thing doesn't go that way, my brain is rejects it. Like, wait, I thought he was supposed to come back at the end of this episode. He's here in the forefront. What's going on? This is crazy. It feels rushed. It feels all these things. Now that I've watched it back a few times, I've settled down on it a little bit because I actually do think it's a very beautiful scene how they did it.
Oh, yeah.
But I guess I just wanted a little bit more of an oomph to that return. Like, we've spent 3 episodes during this Death of Superman arc. That's amazing. They spent so much time with it. I guess I wanted his return to feel more impactful.
Waitful, like you wanted some weight to it.
I totally agree. I think also we've speculated for weeks on this too. Is like, okay, what episode is kind of going to come back in? It's like, probably end of episode 4, midway through episode 5 kind of thing. Right. And then after John got his powers last week, I was like, okay, maybe we're going to still play into that reign of the Supermen kind of thing. Maybe Jordan and Jonathan are going to go out and, fight some villain, right. Or maybe Lex is going to show up in his suit or something like that, and they're going to, be defeated, and, how are we going to get out of this? And then Superman makes his triumphant return, is like, okay, he like stops something before it can hit them or whatever. He makes his triumphant return. You've got your music swelling, and then, maybe he's in the black suit or something like that, or at least he's got like the beard and the mullet, but like,
which, if they would decide to adapt Reign of the Superman, that would have been the best way you can go about it. Because I'll be honest, that's not that great of a story. And like that would have been the better way you can do it, because it's a lot more personal to him. It's not just these 4 random Supermen, one of which is half machine. It would have been a lot more personal to him.
I kind of like the ending scene, like the final fight scene of the episode, is kind of just how I imagined his return to be. And like maybe if he
Yeah, if they would have just waited to have him return in that scene, I would have been fine.
Yeah, because it's a lot more of like a triumphant build-up, and it would be a cheer moment if that's the first time you see him.
Not bad for a dead guy.
Right, and like
talking of Rush, do you think they're gonna just like overpower Doomsday with numbers, and then that's gonna be it? Because I'm gonna be upset because like he's been a whole thing. Like he literally tore the heart out of the man, the most powerful man. I mean, I understand we got 2 sons, but I mean, like he was way more powerful than they were. So yeah, I worry that that's going to be handled very badly.
From what we've seen in this episode, Clark is in no shape for a rematch. Like at all. He's gonna just get General Lane's heart ripped out of him if he tries to go fight Doomsday now. Like I think he's gonna be right back where he was.
Yeah. I think it has to be numbers though. Like I think it's probably gonna be Clark, Jonathan, Jordan, Natalie, Steele,
John Henry.
It's gonna be like only 5 heroes. Yeah, 5 heroes at the moment.
And then surprise, surprise, David Ramsey comes in as Green Lantern. Kidding.
Oh yeah.
Or Tal Rowe comes in from the other world.
Yeah. Apparently, I saw something that the showrunner said, like, his end appearance when he was on the Bizarro World, like, that's it. He's not coming back.
Oh, damn. Really?
Yeah.
No. Yeah.
Yeah, they said a couple times they couldn't get him back, unfortunately. Cameron said...
his character, too, man.
Yeah. Cameron said Sophie looks taller than her sister. She absolutely did. I almost didn't recognize her.
Yeah, that was jarring.
That's always, like... That's always the reaction to Sophie, where it's like, oh, a wild Sophie appeared. Oh my gosh, she's just here all of a sudden.
Well, because, I mean, it's so long between appearances, she just keeps growing.
I'm so surprised she's in this episode. That's hilarious, because we obviously saw Sarah, and I was like, okay. Carl talked about being one of a kind, and I sat giggling, because I was like, well, she does have a sister. So where is she? It's great that she's there.
I think that one is just one of those situations where, like her being a child actor, she's going to be in there less than the others. Because, I mean, the actress is like 12. So, they're not going to be that many appearances. But it was weird seeing her be taller than Sarah, especially considering last time you saw them together, it was like, kind of like Sarah's here, Sophie's like here. Now Sophie's up here. It's like, whoa, what happened?
I wonder if... Like, she didn't have any speaking lines in this episode. I wonder if they literally couldn't afford her to speak. They're like, just come here, jump around a little bit. Because I don't think she spoke the whole episode.
I do wonder, I think we've had this conversation before, but I do wonder how much notice they had of the predicament that they would be in, and how much planning went into it, because obviously some of the storylines are tie-ins to stuff we have in season 3. See what I mean? So... would we still be in the same position with some characters that we are in, or would we not?
Yeah, I mean, they had a long time in advance, right? They were writing the season before the writer's strike, so like they at least knew about the story they wanted to tell through that whole time. Like it was a year and a half off, so they had
last
more.
Season ended in June of last year,
which maybe that's why it's so good. Like, maybe it's so good because they had all of this extra time to think about what they wanted to do.
Yeah, they didn't just rush it out.
And I feel like too they maybe structured it as well as like, okay, the storyline for each character is based off of how many episodes they can get this actor back to actually be in. Like, obviously, the more expensive the actor or the more important the character, like, they have to weigh all of those things. It's like, okay, if we want Michael Cudlitz as Lex Luthor in pretty much every single episode, we're going to have to take some massive cuts with these other characters. I wouldn't be surprised. I'm assuming this is it for Kyle and Chrissy. Like, I don't think they're coming back. I think this is the closure of their storylines for this episode. Like, and I'm fine with that.
Kyle has 3 episodes this season.
So
wait, he is?
He has 2 more episodes.
Oh, really? Okay.
So
wow.
I don't know about Chrissy, though. I'm not sure.
They both might be back in the finale. I don't know.
Everyone's back in the final episode that they've said.
Yeah.
Which means
2 episodes for their pregnancy.
Which means that we're done with Sarah until the series finale. Because she's already had 2 episodes.
Wait, really?
She has 1 more. And she's in the finale. So that means she's done until the last episode. Which is kind of crazy.
And I find it odd, too, that it took her 4 episodes to have 1 conversation with Jordan.
Yeah, because, I mean, especially after, like, in season 3, they kind of rounded off that drama. And then with all this happening, it's like, oh, well, this took a while. Because a lot of her interactions had been with John. Which was a nice change, because you didn't really get to see them interact that much on their own. So
right, but it almost made it seem like there was
nice.
some sort of like beef between her and Jordan, which obviously like
but they've always been good friends.
Season. Yeah.
Wow.
Jonathan and Sarah have always been good friends to the point where it's a point of contention for the brothers in season 1. You know what I mean?
Right.
So them being close is no stranger to the show.
Yeah, because Jonathan was always having to, make up these cover stories for Jordan. So
yeah. Do we think they end up getting back together in the final episode, or do you think we're kind of moving past that?
No.
Maybe.
I mean, I could take it or leave it either way.
Yeah.
Sure. I really don't care either way.
I hope not for Sarah, because she doesn't need that.
I mean, if Jordan can, get his shit together, then maybe.
I was about to say.
He's not likable. He is not likable in any way. The whole time they've made him the worst guy.
Well,
I'd say I'd say season 2 was a good season for him. Now from that point onward, I don't really know, but
he's very similar to Kyle for me, where it's like you like make him the most like annoying guy, and then the next episode was like, oh, you're like the best dude ever, and it's like they don't. It's like up and down roller coaster. It's like,
I wasn't too sure how I felt about him, going through the whole fame side of things in season 3, and the fact that Lois even touched on that a couple times. I was like, do we really need to bring that back out?
Yeah, I didn't love that, but I think looking at it as a whole arc for Jordan from episode 1 to episode 4, I think he actually had a pretty decent arc, right? Think about it in the respect of he's trying to, prove himself to, his mom, who saw him just trying to do this, for the fame. He wants to prove himself to his father, who now died at the hands of Doomsday. He wants to try to take up the mantle, be the hero, protect his family and bring his dad back.
Yeah.
And then when he can't do that, when he realizes, oh, shoot, maybe I wasn't ready, maybe I rushed into things too much, it brings him down. And then the phone call, once, Lex tells him that his mom picked his brother over him, that sends him spiraling.
Yeah.
So it makes sense as to why he would be kind of, pissy with everybody and just be angry at the world, so to speak, because after everything he tried, he couldn't save his dad, and then they had to literally sacrifice their grandfather to get their dad back. And then, he couldn't, do any of the actual hero work or anything, and then now his brother has powers and is a natural and is
do you know what,
things up way easier.
All of the stuff you've just said, right, is just more needles in the game of Kaplunk, okay? Because the whole 4 seasons is just been more and more like other things. He's always been angry at the world, like the anxiety and panic attacks before he got the powers. Do you know what I mean? And then everything else, and then still nobody liking him, just for him being him. So he seeks the whole fame, which I think is a great opposite, obviously, because Jonathan is doing it for the right reasons.
Yeah.
Because he wanted to be a fireman, but when he couldn't be a hero, so he could help people the right way. You know, so he's always doing things in the right way. You know,
and I guess that dichotomy there is, you know, Jordan's doing it because he had nothing else, and he's like, okay, well now I'm special, now I can actually do something. And you know, I think that there's a good back and forth there. I think that the resolution that he came to at the end of this episode is going to put him on a good path. Like, you know, the conversation with Lois, I think that was great, kind of making up for, you know, what happened. And he's like, you know what, at the end of the day, I'm not mad at you for the choice that you made. I'm mad at you because you were right for making that choice. Like, that's, you know, that's a very interesting perspective.
Ouch.
That
sounds like I can't wait for that. I can't wait.
At the end of the day, there were two things I noticed. One, because, you know, with Jordan obviously being the one that got powers first, people were thinking that, you know, they kind of split the comic character John Kent into a powered and a non-powered version. But you know, with John now getting his powers, and you know the way that Jordan has been through a lot of the show, I've been seeing a lot of those comparisons. How you have John, who's a lot more like John Kent, and Jordan, who's a lot more like Connor. You know, like always, you know, being angry and ruthless, impulsive. You know, doesn't think first, goes into those things. And I feel like that was likely kind of their goal from the beginning, is to give him more of those traits of somebody like Connell, and give him, you know, him that more compulsive side. And now, like, because they balance each other out before, you know, you had the kind of hopeful, you know, endearing characteristics in a powerless person, and the impulsive, you know, rash characteristics in a powered one, and that kind of blended the two together. But now I'm curious to see where the rest of the season goes now that both of them are like that. Because something Clark even said to Jordan too, you know, I think it was in the finale of season 3, where he says, you know, if helping people is your actual true north, if that's why you do this, then, you know, like, then that's good. But make sure you're doing these things for the right reason.
And that's immediately what Jonathan said, is like, hey, if, you know, I just want to help people. Like, if I can, you know, help one family not feel the pain and loss that we felt, you know, then I've done my job. And that's a great way to look at things. And I love that mentality.
I've always loved John as a character, you know, even after the recast, which really didn't change anything for me.
I think it made it better.
If anything, it brought out a little bit more acting, and it made him look more like Jordan's brother, because I did like Jordan Ellis's performance, but he did not look related to Jordan. So I think it's honestly improved him.
And like, to go back just a little bit, like him, I wasn't sure about it when it was happening, but like him kind of giving the mantle of Superboy to Jonathan now, and him being like, hey, I'm actually going to figure some stuff out first. I'm going to let you take over for now. I do honestly really like that, because
me too. It shows some growth. It shows some growth.
100%. And also, I'd like to kind of go over what you guys were saying. Like, he always had those mental health issues. He always had depression and anxiety. And when he got his powers, it felt like his powers were a band-aid for those things. It felt like he was covering up his anxieties, his problems, his depression with that. And now that Jonathan has powers, it's like, wait, what I thought made me special is going away now. That is, it's draining from me. So I think him being,
and if anything, it's amplified those issues now.
And it even plays kind of a metaphor too, and at least is the way I saw it, for, you know, kind of like addiction, as like those coping mechanisms. Like, his powers were kind of an addiction for him, the way he coped with it. And he was like, oh, you know, well, I have these powers, I'm going to use them. And he didn't really care about the ramifications, like most addicts do. You know, they just want that temporary fix. So I thought it was really clever. You know, after like the first or second, after like the second or third watch, I was like, wow, that hit a lot harder than the first time. So I've had issues with Jordan in the past, but I'm interested to see where they take him.
Yeah, I am too. And I hope that eventually we see 2 somewhat proper Superboy suits.
Yeah. I think this journey might be one of the more interesting ones for him. Like, I've had my issues with him this season, but I think that's going to make him a very, like, his journey back to being like, okay, I am.
He's more of a 3-dimensional character.
Right. Absolutely.
Talking before about how the show runs on stuff for several seasons, I love the mortality of Clark being called into question consistently by a caring and adoring wife, being now the fundamental storyline of season 4. You know, Because it's very easy to take things in life for granted, and a superpowered husband you could very easily take for granted when he's literally untouchable apart from kryptonite, which one weird guy has,
Mm-hmm.
So it's very easy to get complacent and to still show a true depth of compassion and be like, no, you're still at risk, you're still out there and you're at risk. You need to realize that, and to be like trying to drill that in for years, and then now he's realizing it, and he's sitting there playing with the scar on his chest and thinking, "Oh, why me?" Yeah. She's been trying to warn you, guy.
Yeah, I'm very excited for this slightly weaker Clark, actually, because like the argument for years, like Clark isn't an interesting character because he has too many powers, he's too strong, and I disagree with that. This show has proven he can be interesting being a most powerful man in the world, but I'm also curious of what the most powerful man in the world looks like when he's no longer the most powerful man in the world. Like, he can get drunk, he can fall, he can have issues, he's a little bit human now. That's fascinating.
It makes him more complete, more three-dimensional, more flawed, and that's one of the things that I did not like New 52 Superman as a whole, but I liked how the powers were more slowly gained over time. So he wasn't just perfect from the get-go.
Yeah.
So I'm taking kind of notes from that, and I'm liking it.
I think that Clark's voiceover at the beginning of the episode, it kind of goes back to what you were saying, is it was perfect because it talked about how fragile life is. And I think both now Clark and Lois from each perspective have learned that. Last season, Clark learned that through Lois's cancer storyline, and now Lois has learned the exact same lesson, seeing what Clark has gone through, and now they're both, back at home, things are normal, but they both have those scars.
Yeah, especially for Lois, because last season she was like, "You can't die. This is my fight," and now that we've seen the effects on that,
right. And it's just life is actually very fragile, whether you're a human or a Kryptonian.
I had to laugh out loud with this scene when he's like, "I'm not going anywhere, guys. I'm fine." And I was like, "You can't say that. You literally just died. Like, you have no right to say that, Clark. Stop."
Yeah, you just died, and you have a big scar on your chest that should have healed.
Yeah, right. And to keep going, they're living in fear to the point where they're like, "No, raise your voice too much. Doomsday might hear, and he will be back." Okay, So like, they very much realize the consequence of everything,
Yeah, I think they've been doing a much better job with, honestly, just adapting Doomsday than a lot of other adaptations have done in the past. Even though it might not look the most like Doomsday, that was kind of what I liked about it in this case. Because take BVS for example, that one just looked like Doomsday stripped of all his defining features. This one
looked like a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle.
Yeah, exactly. And this one looked, more like Doomsday, like fit and adapted into this world. And it's weird that they've done the whole like dead Kryptonian body made into Doomsday twice now, but this one I feel like worked a lot better this time. And you saw like with that fight in the first episode, he was getting like the white eyebrows, more of the spikes were coming out, so more of his defining features were coming. And that symbol too, where you still saw the backward symbol on the chest, I don't know about anyone else, but it made me think a lot of Draga from Just League Unlimited, with the symbol, the way it was kind of like into the body like that. I was getting flashbacks to that.
Sure.
I do definitely like that he's sticking. No, sorry. I do definitely like that Doomsday is sticking around and that he's still a constant threat throughout the season, rather than again it ending in a kill trade like it normally is. It's like, okay, they both die.
I thought it would be a little too expensive to keep him around.
Yeah.
I'm shocked.
Did anyone else feel like, it just hit me a few minutes ago, like it's massively inappropriate and irresponsible for the Kent family to be hosting a wedding in their predicament? Like, I haven't seen the wedding yet, but I'm imagining there's quite a few guests, no?
I mean, I kind of think that it's more so like, all right, we gotta kind of go back to some semblance of normalcy. Like, Clark had been back for 3 weeks, they said, since since he had come back. Like, so I think that that's more so them saying, okay, we know that stuff has happened, but we kind of have to get back to the way things were, try to pretend like everything's fine and normal, and
it's like life goes on,
exactly.
I know, but you're kind of at war at this point. Lex Luthor has declared war, you know?
Yeah.
I guess.
And there was no armistice, so them playing football at Christmas is completely irresponsible, in my opinion.
I guess kind of the assumption right now is that Lex didn't know yet. Like, I guess he just hadn't caught on at that point in time that Clark had returned, that Superman came back. But then,
well, I guess was kind of why Lois was like, "Hey, like he's got to lay low and that kind of thing."
But then also you put up a good point. It's like a wedding is putting a little bit of a target on your back. If Lex cares across the street and be like, "Is that a party? Why are they celebrating? I just killed your husband.
Right?
What's going on?"
Like, wait, is that Clark back from the dead?
Especially the fact that people.
It's just Clark Kent. It's fine.
Especially the fact that people like Lana and Sarah are on Luthor's radar already. So it's like that's just widening the net more.
And the fact that Lois is super chill right now. You know what I mean? Like, she's across the road working on her bulletin board, chipper as can be. You know what I mean? Like, she's grieving her dad, but she's still got a buzz in her step because Clark's still about. So, like, he must be putting two and two together. He bought the thing across the street to keep an eye on it.
Yeah.
Right, yeah.
True. But I think maybe it was also strategic as well. Like, maybe he was waiting to see like if Clark would still be a threat, because for all he knows that he could have come back and not have his powers, but as we see at the end of the episode, obviously the fact that Clark had to go in as Superman revealed the new suit, which looked kind of cool. The symbol is the biggest thing that looked different. Then we get the notifications, Superman lives, that kind of thing. So then obviously we're going to deal with the big fallout and the ramifications of that next week and so on.
Right.
As soon as I saw the headline, I could not help but think of the canceled movie.
I'm assuming that was the reference. Like one of the titles was Death of Superman, obviously. One of the titles is Superman Lives, so.
Is anyone else waiting for him just flying off into the sun for a bit to fix everything?
Well, I mean, they did that before already. I don't know if they would want to do it again.
Why not? It's Superman.
I mean, that's fair. I mean, he did get, thrown into the sun when he lost his powers. So they could do something like that again, because that did create some of the better visuals that you've seen in the show. Just that, because that whole thing with the sun and, even too with like the moon earlier in the season, it just created some great visuals.
Yeah.
Speaking of visuals, I think the establishing shots in this episode were really good. Like for no reason whatsoever. Like there were some really good like overhead shots and stuff. I don't know.
I think that's just the case for the show in general. It looks a lot more cinematic than a lot of your other DC shows.
Oh yeah, 100%, and it always is. But those just stood out to me this week.
There's a lot of like Kent Farm shots, so there was a lot more opportunities to have the sunset or the sunrise or sky shots that just look gorgeous. Like that shot.
I really love that house. I gotta say.
I did too.
It's a great property. Absolutely.
That'd be a fun vacation one day.
Oh yeah.
They still can't nail the Arctic though, can they?
I thought it looked decent.
Yeah, I mean, they're not some of the better looking shots from the show. Like, listen, like if people didn't point it out to me, I would not even notice it. But like once people are like, "Hey, look, it looks so funny here," I'm like, "That's fair." Like it doesn't look like.
I mean, it looks like it's green. It looks like it's green screen, but like, what do you expect? They're not going to fly to. They're not going to fly to the Arctic, and
especially with last season, I think it really kicked the visuals up a notch too. Overall, just with the amount of varied areas you saw, like you saw space, which they did a lot, but the different fortresses, the moon underwater, you saw a lot of different competing visuals, and I think that's just been one of the show's strongest points.
Exactly, and it doesn't feel so small. Like we could spend 4, 5, 6 an entire season in Central City and never leave in the Flash.
Yeah.
But with this, we have 4 or 5 big name locations within an episode. Like
and like other countries
like this week
too,
alone.
so.
Yeah, exactly. Like this week alone,
cool.
we had the farm, we had Metropolis, we had the Arctic, we had the fortress itself as well. So like, we're always going different places.
I really liked the parallels between Jordan and Jonathan with their Arctic flight with Clark. Like those two scenes were very similar. Like I like how Jordan, like Clark did the like big Star Wars reference. He's like, "What are you talking about, Dad?" And then with Jonathan, he's like, "Oh yeah, it's like this." He's like, "Oh, you got it. That's so good." And I like how like Jordan didn't get it at first. Like when he jumped, he was scared. He didn't know what to do. He was kind of fumbling it. Where Jonathan got it instantly. Like he just like
John's just like
fall over
backwards. Trust fall.
Yeah.
and on those parallels too, I think it was in the second episode of the season. I think where they show a parallel back to that moment in season 3, whenever Clark and Jordan are both fighting against those Intergang members, and you see Jordan in the same like stance as he's getting up from the kryptonite like Clark was, and they put the shots back and forth.
Yeah,
it was like cool. Really cool parallels. Yeah.
I do want to read this comment. They commented back when we were talking about the Jordan stuff. Comic Nation Gaming says, as someone who grew up in their teen years as the show has went on, he's actually really realistic given the disorder that he has. So I actually think they're doing him pretty good this season. He's very believable as a teen who's insecure and struggling with their mental health for such a long time. I would agree with all that. Like I've always thought it was a good representation of all that. Yeah. I guess the problem is just like it is a bit annoying, but like my take has always been, but I think that's kind of the point as well. Like, I think teenagers are annoying.
It's not something everybody can resonate with. So
right.
Yeah. I think he's doing a
realistic
great job.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, that was it.
But yeah, realistic doesn't always equal likable.
That's true.
That's fair.
True as well. Yeah. True as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, and you just kind of have to find that happy medium.
Right.
And yeah, like I think the kind of idea is like we're supposed to be watching these kids grow up, but we're supposed to be watching these kids turn into the versions of themselves that they're used to. Like, yeah, this was only a 4th season show, but it was supposed to be a 7th season show. Like, I think we were literally supposed to see them become Superman. Like, I think that was the whole original point, was they were supposed to do that entire journey and throughout those 7 seasons.
It is a crying shame we're not getting that.
Yeah.
But then again, I've fallen under the whole thing that happened with a lot of the other shows. Like, would it have gotten stale? Would it have gotten bad? You know, would it have been one of those things like, oh, this should have ended 3 seasons ago? You know, so I guess you'll never really know.
I also think him finding himself is not a bad thing, because Clark had to find himself too, to find his true Superman. And that's also a thing. Like I feel like we don't typically get to see that part of Clark left outside of like Smallville, but like Smallville was a bit different because it's like
like the whole show is that.
Right. Yeah.
But you also got that one flashback episode in season 1 where he, like went off on his own and you saw him finding himself. I wish we could have gotten a little bit more of that, because that was honestly, that's still one of the best episodes in the series to me.
Brilliant. Yeah.
And like, if we could, get a little bit more of that, or maybe see Jordan start to mirror some of those things, I think it'd be really cool.
Yeah. I mean, maybe we get some sort of a conversation between Clark and Jordan now of something about that. Just like, hey, like, I know it was tough for you when I was gone. I've been through a lot of things, similar to that. Obviously, I was the only superpowered being for a while. And, it's crazy that, now both you and your brother are powered and everything. But like, I think that, having some sort of maybe admiration from his father is going to be very helpful in, Jordan moving forward and being like, okay, I know I didn't, succeed, but at least, my dad's proud of me for giving it the best try that I could.
I mean, because Clark losing his dad was kind of that spark that ignited his, journey, where he had to go and discover who he was meant to be. And, even though Jordan got his dad back, relatively quickly, in comparison, I think that might still be kind of a similar spark for him.
Yeah.
Question. What would you prefer? A, we keep Clark like humanized and depowered to finish a season and to the rest of his life, or B, comic book fix and he's super duper by the end of it and just punching holes in big L suits?
Yeah. I made a video a couple of days ago kind of talking about this last thing, because throughout the week I was really looking at, like, thinking about it and being like, what is going to be the journey for Clark this season? And basically what I had said, and I like, after we've seen this episode, I'm glad I made it last week, because I think it, we added a lot of context to what we got this week.
It was a very good video, by the way.
Thank you.
Yes, it was.
Oh, thank you. But like my idea was like Clark was going to come back. He was either going to not have powers or like he was either going to come back with a lot of powers and slowly lose them throughout the season, or just come back weaker. And this season would be a journey about acceptance, accepting that you aren't the man you used to be. You're not the only Superman, and having to almost pass the torch a little bit, if not fully, at least part-time, being like, okay, there can be multiple Supermans. Maybe I'll let my sons take up most of the mantle and I'll help them sometimes. Or him to a point, maybe being like, maybe I don't have to be Superman anymore. I've been doing this for 20 years now. Maybe it's okay for me to take a step back and let Steel, let Starlight, let, Superboys take that spot that I had for now almost 30 years or whatever it was. I'd be interested to see if they go that route. I know people wouldn't like it. People would be pissed. I know that.
Yeah,
but
I mean, because like at the end of the day, like they would just want a satisfying Superman conclusion for him, because Tyler's like the only live action Superman, really, aside from it's Tom Welling, that has a chance to have a proper conclusion of sorts, and they don't want that to be missed.
And also, like, I think we talked about this last week, but the Crisis comics, when those Crisis comics came out, Superman Lois was canon then. Like, it was part of the Arrowverse then.
Yeah.
That Superman was retired. That was a Superman that was no longer in business. So maybe that was always kind of the plan,
Yeah. Then have you guys seen those articles too, saying about how like somewhere near the end of Superman and Lois, like there's apparently, I think Tyler Hoechlin and Bitsy Tillich said this, to where one of the last episodes will pay off the Arrowverse. Apparently, I don't see how you do that. I really don't see how.
I mean, maybe if they go crazy, like a multiversal connection or some sort of reference or something
kind of like how we got at the end of Titans.
But maybe, I don't think it has to be massive. I think that maybe some sort of reference to like, we've been through so much, remember when we were back on Earth Prime and now we're, on Earth whatever's Earth SM, but
Or like if they can't Phantom Zone Doomsday, they could just send him to a parallel Earth where he's not going to cause harm, and then like reference how they travel to the other CW shows.
Yeah.
Because Doomsday already existed in that prior continuity.
Technically, yeah.
Yeah, because like they mentioned him by name, you just never saw him.
It would make sense if this version, like this Earth's Clark and Diggle, fought in some sort of crisis, because they reference it, right? Like they even confirm Oliver too. Yeah. A version of he fought with a version of Oliver. Like I could believe it if like, maybe off screen there's an adventure where he crosses over with them, they fight, and then he gets sent back or something. That's kind of how. Yeah. I doubt they're doing that here, but like,
probably not.
I think I could see like a Stargirl-esque ending where they end it. There's a portal cup. Oh, it's something. Blah blah blah. We need your help, and he goes through or whatever.
Yeah.
But
I saw there was a speaking of interviews and stuff like that. There was a clip that I put at the beginning of my episode 1 and 2 review, which was an interview with Alex Garfin, who plays Jordan, and he was talking about like how the show. He thinks that there's a very satisfying conclusion, and, he was like something along the lines of, I know we haven't really been connected to the Arrowverse, but fans of the Arrowverse proper will be happy with how this show ends. So basically, don't worry about that. I know that the show is ending sooner than everybody expected, but, it's going to have a satisfying ending, not just for the main cast, the side characters, but also pay homage to the wider Arrowverse by the end of it.
Right. I think it is really fitting. It is really fitting the fact that CW started their DC run with a pre-Superman, someone who's developing him, and now they're ending it with a veteran Superman who has 20 years on his career.
Did you guys see the new rumored Tom Cavanaugh role? Who people have
been I did see that.
Mixes Pitalik.
That is a character that can reference. That's a character that can reference.
Yeah.
What if you do that scene from like My Adventures with Superman when he's transforming into like he just like turns himself into like Thawne for a second and he's like I've been a bunch of people boop, 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 or something like that.
Yeah.
No,
if there's one actor from CW that would do that, it would be Tom Cavanaugh.
Yeah.
Very true.
By the way, I cannot see him playing that character. I cannot see this season doing that. But it
wouldn't really make much sense. But yeah.
No.
Yeah, because they've never gotten into like the cosmic side of the DC universe. I feel it's been, despite it being a Superman show, it's been more so grounded. I feel like in the way it can be grounded. Like I know you have Doomsday and some crazy science fiction-y stuff, but it's been more contained. I feel like
it doesn't go too far out of what you already know.
Yeah.
Do you not feel given the stakes that Lex and Superman have been dealing with for years that we've been shortchanged, and we're going for a big kind of Marvel beat 'em up special if he's going to be getting a suit?
That's a good question.
Because he's been spending like 20, he's not 20 years because he's in prison, right? But he spent like a whole bunch of that time matching wits with Superman on a constant scale to where he was like, oh, he's a real threat, like blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And then now all we're going to be getting is a big whack-em-up.
I think that's not how the show is going to end. I think we're going to get that Superman versus Lex fight maybe somewhere like episode 6, 7, 8, somewhere in there. I think potentially the big battle is going to be, again, I mentioned this, I believe, last week, is we might have to have Lex team up with everybody to fight Doomsday, because I think Doomsday is going to get completely just like out of control.
Yeah.
Out of control. And we've got a depowered Clark, and I guess that brings me back to answering your question originally as well, is so we know that either Clark's body is not fully accepting General Lane's heart, or the fact that it's a human heart, or that he's, what did Lois say? Like, 60-year-old man heart, basically. Like, he's got a older heart, a human heart, and not a Kryptonian heart. So either his body is going to take a lot of time to fully accept it, or we're going to have to go back to our original theory of like, okay, maybe Lex didn't destroy the heart originally. Doomsday gets so out of hand. Lex is like, okay, well, I saved this for a reason. Maybe we really do need powerful Superman back. They, do the transplant. Clark becomes, stronger than ever before, back to his old self, if not better. And then they do the big Doomsday fight. And then maybe it's more so a battle of wits between Lex at the end of it. It's like, okay, the enemy of my enemy is my friend. Now that the big threat has been taken care of, then we have to, come to some sort of agreement. Like, dude, you went way overboard.
That is one thing that I do like whenever you have, like that Lex and Superman dichotomy, because in other, adaptations, you've seen it to where Lex, works with Superman when he doesn't want to, and he's even been asked, like, I'm surprised to see you, siding with the likes of them, because it was one of the confrontations, I can't remember which, but it was a Superman thing where Darkseid was coming back into the world, and they said, why are you working with, the man you hate most of all? I said, I had to choose the lesser of my two evils. The worst Superman would do is hand me over to the authorities. Darkseid would destroy everything. So that same sort of deal, I feel like would probably happen here.
And I guess there's also... Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead. No, I was just going to say, like, I do feel like this Lex Luthor is so much different than ones we've had in the past, because I feel like Lex is... His decisions is based on what he thinks is best for the human race, what he thinks would improve everything. This Lex Luthor seems like he only cares about revenge. Like, he's like, well,
he's a lot more bitter,
Right, like, I am justified in my actions. The world... In his mind, he probably thinks the world would be better without Superman, but... Ultimately, it seems like a feud in pure anger above it all.
And the crux of his rivalry too is kind of more with Lois than it is with Superman. So it's very unique to this show.
Yeah, 100%. I think he's much more, at least at this point, a Lois villain than a Superman villain. I think
that's kind of what worries me too. I just want to see if we'll actually get that Superman Lex Luthor rivalry by the end.
Yeah,
this is true. Go ahead. Sorry.
Did we get Elizabeth in this episode?
No.
Not at all. There was no Lex this episode.
They need some kind of payoff.
And again, I think we mentioned this last week too, is like the fact that General Lane being such, a high-ranking DoD official, the fact that he went so far to protect Lex's daughter, like either she knows something, she's capable of creating something that if that information were to fall into Lex's hands, there would be a big issue. And
what profession is she in? Sorry,
I think she's like crazy science tech something, like from those clippings, those newspaper
very
clippings.
Gemma
I think it showed that
coded.
she's obviously she's smart just like her dad. So
yeah, I think they're going to play it very smart though, because I think Elizabeth will probably fill in for one of the guests, one of the character roles that there won't be, right? So like we're fastly using up some of those like supporting character roles. What John Henry has 2 more episodes, which includes the finale. Sarah has 1 more, Kyle has 2. But I feel like eventually, like I think Jimmy will probably fill in one of those episodes where we don't have a supporting cast member.
He's gonna pop up too.
And I could see Elizabeth
Jimmy.
also filling up. Yeah, which Cameron just asked about Jimmy. Do we know which episode Jimmy Olsen is appearing in?
I don't think we know which one.
We don't.
What Jimmy are we getting?
We're getting a Jimmy Olsen.
Not Makad Brooks. It's their own.
It's a new casting. Yeah.
Oh.
I was a betting man. Episode 9 is a flashback episode, it seems. So I'm guessing episode 9.
Maybe, yeah.
That makes sense to me. I'd love
Does
if he
that
showed
make
up.
sense? Like,
yeah.
Okay, I'm just gonna say okay, and accept it and move on. Okay, cool.
If we get that similar sort of episode like we got near the end of season 1 with that flashbacks where you see a lot of the beginning of Superman, I would really like that, honestly.
I think it would be cool if he made like a present day appearance as well. Like I think it'd be kind of, again, we don't know the presence of the Jimmy relationship. Like we don't really he's been referenced a couple times. I'd love it if he came into town after the whole debacle. Like maybe he heard he died. He was gonna come to visit, but he didn't want to intrude. But then he found out he's back. He's like, all right, now I gotta go visit. I gotta go see what's up with my super family. I think that'd be cool.
Yeah. With those references, have they confirmed whether or not like he is in on their whole secret?
I don't remember it. I
don't know.
I think like they referenced him once in season 1 when they were talking about like their past at the Daily Planet. Mm-hmm. I don't remember. I
will
really
say
don't.
It is kind of interesting though that we've seen so many now flashbacks to the early days of Planet, and there's no Jimmy Olsen whatsoever, no mention of him. Nobody like calls for him off screen or anything. So we're just supposed to accept like, okay, I guess maybe he came in a little bit later or something like that.
Yeah, I think it was kind of a late addition.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
They did put out a new trailer today. I don't know if you guys saw the trailer, but they had a couple of cool looking shots. Yeah. We got another shot at that Lexo suit. There's that really cool shot when he's doing the shirt reveal.
The shirt open.
And
yeah.
It also showed the suit again, but my biggest critique is I feel like they muted the colors.
Yeah, because that's what I liked about, especially the suit in seasons 1 and 2. It was a vibrant blue.
It was so bright. Yeah.
Yeah.
I like the new symbol, but if we got the color palette of the old suit with the new symbol, I think we'd be good.
Yeah.
I don't know why we needed a new suit, to be honest. Like, I would have rather the other character. I don't like maybe they are getting new suits, but I would rather like Super Sun suits. I'd like the updated steel suit. Like, I don't know. I don't know if
I like his season 3 suit, but I feel like it made one thing worse because I mean, as much as I love the one from season 1 and 2, the logo was a little flat. But the one in season 3, it did raise the logo, but it kind of made one thing worse because the suit had an ab design that kind of took away from it a little bit. So I was hoping that this new one would kind of just be the best of both worlds, but it kind of went back to what the Earth Prime Superman looks like, where the colors are darker.
Right. Yeah. And then also we were teased that there was like a big detail on the new suit. Darren, I just direct messaged you the post from Bitsy Tulloch. It's basically just little Superman symbols in the texture, so it's nothing
that's
crazy.
Really cool.
But it is pretty cool. Yeah.
I don't know if I saw that one.
I'll pull it up really quickly here.
And it also, if you look at the reply to it, kind of goes up to or I guess in with the emblem as well.
Okay, let's see this.
I'm pulling it up on screen here.
All right, cool.
So yeah, there's like the little patterns are like indented onto the suit.
That's cool.
It is very cool. I wonder how long that took. That couldn't have been easy.
No, it could not have.
I just feel like we haven't gotten a good look at it yet, like a good in the daytime look. I feel like I'll be like, all right, I love it now. But again, I just my biggest critique is just the colors are muted, and and if you didn't tell me that it was a new suit, I'd just be like, oh, they just fixed the old suit.
I didn't notice it in the moment. Like I heard they posted a photo a couple weeks ago of the new suit, and I was like, I don't even see it. And then even in the episode, you see it in the symbol. Like that's what you really notice,
right?
And then if you look at it, if you look at the two back to back, you're like, oh yeah, this one's definitely darker. Which is that their reference?
Maybe that's
to
their right. I was about to say maybe that's their homage to the black suit, but
they have the black suit. They could have just given him.
They have it, yeah.
And then what about the suit that also going to another thing, we had the hologram Superman for all of 5 minutes, and he had his own little, whatever that kind of
Kryptonian garb,
yeah, and then I'm guessing we're never gonna see that again, which is weird.
Likely not.
I don't know. Do you think he had a stylized wardrobe that he was picking between outfits? Because there's no way he has that in the Fortress, right? So, do you think he was picking between his avatars? Like, oh, what do I want to wear?
Well, because it was kind of that same. It was that same thing that Tal had, right? It was the same sort of garb that he wore, just with a slightly different symbol.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah. It was more so less of a battle suit and more of a, I guess more casual Kryptonian clothes.
So the answer to that is in the first season, yes. They used in the early season or in the early start of the show, they had too much muscle padding though, which is why they toned it down because the first few episodes his body looked a little too big for his head. But they did fix that pretty quickly.
Yeah, and that that was frustrating because Tyler does not need it. Tyler is a very muscular
really
man.
And what you saw in the back half of season 1 going into 2, a lot of it was his natural physique, which was why I was kind of upset in season 3 when they added the ab design.
But I mean, no matter how big the actor is in real life, putting the suit on, you're going to lose some of that definition just inherently. So you kind of have to accentuate that a little bit. You have to have that little additional padding in there, whether he really needs it or not. But I think minimal additional padding is better than making him look like the Michelin Man.
Yeah, I mean, just make it to where it's under the suit, not in it, and it won't look fake.
Exactly.
It's quite funny to me with how the symbols are on the new suit. The Superman is quite literally full of hope.
Yeah,
that's true.
That's true.
Yeah, I'm trying to think if there's anything else I want to bring up. I do think this was a more base. I don't want to say basic because I think this episode was actually very needed. I think this episode, after the very traumatic season it was nice to have a little bit of a hope. It was nice to have a breath of fresh air. I felt like they were literally being like, okay, let's have a celebration for our characters and the fans where they can see our characters happy again, have this breath of fresh air going into the final 6 episodes where things will probably get a little bit dark again. I doubt as dark as the first 3. I doubt we're killing off another major character.
Yeah,
but
I doubt
it's seeing, I don't know, just seeing Lois happy again was I think I needed that a little bit. It was like, okay, things are okay, things are better.
And like I was saying too, this kind of episode, it develops those side characters too, because you don't just want to leave them completely by the side, or else there's really no point in having them there.
Okay, what I'm about to say is very weird, and processing that, I might have to take it back once I say this.
Okay.
Do we think last season Lois kind of wanted a baby? They ended the episode. Reintroducing each other. I in that moment I was like, are they maybe actually going to do Natalie or do another child, a third child in this final season? Do you think there's any chance of that?
If you're actual Natalie,
probably not exactly Natalie. Obviously, not exactly Natalie.
That's
no, it would have been the Natalie that she lost during the miscarriage.
Right. A third baby is what I mean. Because they were kind of talking about that last season, and the cancer stuff happened.
Yeah. I mean, maybe I
don't think it's
guess
necessary.
It's possible, but I don't even know if we really need it.
No.
I think now too
yeah.
that both the boys have powers and stuff like that. Do they even want to,
Do they even want to
their
tempt
luck
fate
again?
Yeah.
Third one's just a like general of the army. She's walking out. She's like, oh,
Yeah.
Older,
No,
like,
I mean
she's an
unless
older Lois
unless
Lane.
unless this third kid is just gonna be like Jack from The Incredibles and have all the powers immediately, like
hell yeah.
Yeah.
Again, she's an older lady, so like there's a real possibility of a Homelander situation we need to very much be worried about.
I don't know if that's
fair.
necessarily needed or not, and
Sure.
especially since like introducing I know it's not like a new character, but putting that in right at the end, I feel like would be like, okay, I feel like you could have had more of a finite conclusion to the character there.
Sure. I guess like what I just imagined in that, look, maybe in the final episode she confirms she's pregnant or whatever, and it kind of just, I don't need that, but like when the episode ended like that, it just kind of crossed my mind, like, well, maybe like they could.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I don't know if it's needed though.
It's definitely not needed.
Yeah, I think as well, like the whole time during the pregnancy, you'd have that whole like PTSD flashback with the whole cancer stuff, because the whole time you were like, oh, I think I'm pregnant, and and then the whole time you're sitting there with that joy, also mixed in with the turmoil of the stuff that you're still going through,
Yeah.
And would it even be safe? Like, how long has it been since her treatment, where she had like radiation pumped through her?
Yeah. I mean, I think in this episode she was still getting like residual treatments.
Yeah, she is.
So
yeah, it wouldn't be safe, really.
No.
Yeah, that's fair. I do just like, as we're kind of coming towards the end here, I know we're over 2 hours at this point, but I do want to talk a little bit of Kyle and Chrissy, because we talked about it at the very start of the stream.
Yeah, they exist. Forgot about that.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I'm someone who I am also someone who really likes Kyle. Like, he goes through his moments. He goes through scenes where I'm like, what the fuck you doing, man? Like why are you doing this thing? But I do really like him. Like, I really love the dynamic of Kyle and Clark. I think that's actually one of my favorite dynamics on the show.
Yeah.
Like,
that's something I like too.
Like, their journey through since season 1, their back and forth thing, to season 2 becoming friends. I loved his scene last season when like Clark's having that diner fight and he's about to get up to protect Clark, and they're like, well, no. Just him being like, go Kent. Like, I love their dynamic.
And then what I love too is after he finds out, in the most casual way, just runs into him and slowly pushes him back, and then he's so nice to him after that. I was like, I thought it was a really fun just dynamic too. And
that's on so many YouTube shorts. It's hilarious.
Oh, it's so good.
Oh yeah, and
Cameron,
it's been a while since one of those shows had a viral moment that was actually a good thing.
Good,
because a lot of the stuff that goes viral is stuff that's often very easy to make fun of. But like, kind of on the opposite end of the Colin Chrissy thing, the one of the characters that I think I've liked one of the most in this show, aside from the Super Family, I've honestly really liked Lana a lot.
I agree,
and because the fact that, especially when you put that up against her Smallville counterpart was almost a nothing character and was just an attractive doll, basically. So the fact that there's actually layers to her character here, you see, her high moments, you see, but also her flaws, especially in the third season. She's more of a three-dimensional character, and I thought, the whole thing where they paired her up with John Henry Irons, I thought that was actually kind of cool. They took a minute to get to it, but I thought it was a nice pairing. But I just gotta say, I've liked her a lot because she's an actual character this time, unlike most of her iterations.
Yeah.
Can someone clip that last bit and send it to 3Dubs?
I mean, he also does not like Lana. That's I had him on. We actually did a Smallville ranking, and he put her in F tier.
Oh.
So
there's one character I would say is worse than Lana for me, and I'm not going to mention it because of controversy with actress, but that probably gives it away already.
Gotcha. Yeah.
F
tier actress, at least, I'd say.
So I didn't like the character or the actress necessarily.
Gotcha.
Like, even before all that stuff came out.
I did just want to talk about, like, I actually really liked Chrissy's journey this episode, actually. Like, I thought, like, that, I think, transcended my expectations, because like when it happened last season, I was like, oh, this is happening really quickly. Okay, I'm not sure how I feel about this. And I love how that's her arc in this episode, is like they felt like they had to get married now because they're having a baby, and that's what like society tells you have to do. And I really loved this episode's journey of like, actually no one says you have to do that. Like that's actually, you don't actually have to. You can have the, you can stay engaged, you can have this kid, you can take your time, develop develop your relationship in the way you want it to, and then when time comes you can do that. I thought that was really cool. And like,
I think so too.
The thing with the mom, where like the mom comes and is like, oh, you don't even know each other, blah 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 blah, and like she had no right to come in there and say that to them. But also, she wasn't necessarily wrong in what she was saying.
Yeah, she's not wrong there. Oh no, that was.
It's interesting that during the start of the show, I mean, the whole fight is to fit in, or at least have the appearance of fitting in. But they're constantly having to find journeys and steps and avenues to take their own way and to stand out in their own way to progress. So it's funny that their natural instinct is wrong and they should just be themselves.
Yeah.
100%. Overall, I'm really liking the season so far. I have my nitpicks here and there, but I'm really liking what they're doing.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Is there any final thoughts that we haven't talked about yet that you guys want to bring up? I know we talked about it a lot.
Yeah, I mean, again, I think just overall, this was probably my least favorite, probably the weakest episode of the season so far. But on a scale of like everything else has been virtually a 10 out of 10, that doesn't mean that this was, by any means a bad episode. It was just
because it was
not
weaker, doesn't mean it was bad.
Yeah, it wasn't, I guess, as meady as the last couple of episodes. And again, I think it served its purpose. It was kind of that bridging episode.
Yeah.
It gave, Kyle and Chrissy some good kind of closure to their storyline and kind of shows us, where they're going to go from there. It allowed the family to kind of, take a brief reprieve between, losing Clark, losing Sam, Clark coming back. So we kind of got a chance to basically just chill for an episode.
Yeah.
And then get back into the swing of things next week. Obviously we didn't have Lex this week either. He was severely missed by me, but I think that it was a good choice to maybe not have him in this episode because he definitely wasn't needed.
No, because then you would have just been looking the whole time. If he was there, you've been like, okay, when is this going to go wrong?
Yeah. And I also think that's a misstep some of these CW shows kind of fall into sometimes with their villains, where it's like, well, they're a series regular, they have to be in every episode, despite if they fit or not. Like, Cicada fell into that very easily, where it's like, well, he's the main villain, so he's in every episode. It's like, no, he actually doesn't need to be in, like, I don't know, 8 of these episodes that you have them in. Like, you could spread, or whatever it may be. Like, you could spread it out a little bit.
Because, like, if you put them in so long, you find their weakness too quick, and then they just become a recurring, like... It becomes a whole thing of like, oh, why aren't you reading this person? Because I don't want to.
Because we got about
15 more episodes to get. Which is, like some of those 23 long episode seasons are good, but they could have been shorter.
Yeah.
I gotta say, I agree with Kaz. Just that an episode that doesn't have somebody's heart coming out of their chest or neck snapping is gonna feel like a really slow episode.
Yeah, that's true. But then, I think this episode was just needed.
I'm happy.
For sure.
I'm happy not to have. I'm happy to have a slow episode for once, and it might be the only episode like. And to be fair, this might be the last episode we ever get like this again, where characters get to chill. Like I have a feeling the rest of the season is gonna be jam packed with action and crazy stuff and big Lex Luthor fight scenes and stuff like that. So,
do you think there's gonna be a time jump at the end
of the season?
At the end of the season, do you think they're going to time jump?
Yeah,
I think so.
Yeah, it's possible.
I think that's kind of one of the best ways to be like, all right, we know we're ending the show earlier than we wanted to, but we can really show you.
Do you think we're recasting the boys to adults?
I think we're getting
basically. I mean, the actors.
Yeah, the actors are.
They're supposed to be like what, 15, 16 in the show, and they're both like 20, 21 in real life. So we could do that realistic time jump. So 5-6 years potentially to see them as established heroes, see where Clark is, either if he's had to live life with these, restricted powers and still with General Lane's heart with all of these restrictions almost as a slightly more powerful human, or if he's gotten those powers back and he's, just taking a back seat while he's training his sons and letting them kind of, take the brunt of the superheroing while Clark spends more time with Lois, with family and, doing the important things. Because obviously, if Clark does, get his powers fully back, Lois is going to get old and he's not. So,
and
that's
I think it's going to be one of those things where, like we saw with the very last scene in the Flash's finale, where it's going to end on a hopeful note. Like it's just going to be like him, like running, or in the case of Superman, it's going to be like like flying, probably with both of his sons beside him, and it's going to be like a happy ending.
Yeah, I think in good old CW fashion, we're giving those two kids two very ugly looking wigs, and we're gonna pretend like they're 20.
No, we can't get away from the wigs.
One last time. We need bad wigs one last final time.
Well,
Less wasn't enough.
I would rather bad wigs than really bad makeup when you're trying to age people up 20 years.
Cecile looked really bad last season of The Flash when they're like, she's supposed to be like 70 years old.
Yeah, like 75. And like no one looked older. The only people that developed were Nora. And when I say developed, I mean she went from fetus to full-grown adult.
Yeah. Oh, and on that note,
weird note to end on there.
That's going to be the end of our stream today. This is an absolute blast. One by one, we're going to be going over. Where can we find you, folks? Jake, where can people find you?
So you can find me right there at Joypad Jake on YouTube. If I can get my finger in frame, there we go. And that's what I do right there on the tagline: Let's Plays, Rankings, Retro Reviews. And thanks to the influence of a couple people, actually, I'm started doing Superman and Lois videos for this season, and probably some other DC TV rankings too. So the video coming out tomorrow is going to just be covering these first 4 episodes, the way that the entire, death and return of Superman arc has been so far. And also have videos coming out for things that are related to gaming, talking about, the Wolverine game coming out, which, sadly had some leaks come out of it, but I haven't read any of those leaks. So, I'm going into it with still an open mind. And you can also find me on Comical, where you can read a lot of my writing that I do. So there's that too.
Nice.
Absolutely. Taz, where can people find you?
YouTube.com/ToxicTaz. Be on the lookout this week for my episode breakdown, some theories, that type of thing, and potentially some Black Ops 6 content if everything goes smoothly in the release this weekend.
Amazing. What about you, Darth? Where can people find you?
Just check out Darth Bunyan on YouTube. Come and say hi and check out what we got over there.
Amazing. Love to see it. And for me, join us next Tuesday. We'll be doing the same thing next week. Agatha, Penguin, and Super Lois. Join us at the Pipeline this Thursday. We are Halloween episode. We're going to be ranking, or not ranking, but we're going to be talking about some of our favorite Disney villains. I'm very excited for that.
Ooh, that's a good one.
Yeah, I'm very excited for that. And I have a couple video stuffy coming out this week as well that I'm very excited for. And ladies and gentlemen, until next time, we will see you on the flip side. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.